Chapter 357. He didn't dare to fly too fast. After all, Akatsuki was still a beginner on the path of clouds. Akatsuki closed her eyes tightly and didn't say a word. Open your eyes and look ahead. It's not that scary. Yifan turned his head and said to Akatsuki, the scenery now is not bad. When Akatsuki heard Yifan's words, she tentatively opened her eyes slowly. At this time, the sun was setting in the west. The golden light illuminated the sea of clouds in the sky. The two of them slowly flew above the clouds, as if they were in paradise. Akatsuki looked at the golden sea of clouds in front of her. She didn't feel as scared as before. How is it? Yifan looked at Akatsuki. Is it better? Akatsuki finally spoke. You'll slowly get used to it, Yifan said and turned his head. I've caused you trouble, Akatsuki whispered to Yifan. Yifan's cultivation was so deep that it was far beyond her imagination. You didn't do anything wrong, Yifan said to Akatsuki while using his movement technique. You don't have to say that. He knew in his heart that the one who caused him trouble wasn't Akatsuki, but Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Akatsuki pursed her lips and didn't speak. Are you cold? After a long time, Yifan asked Akatsuki. If you're cold, I can go slower. I'm not cold, Akatsuki said. Thank you, Yifan-kun. Don't call me Yifan in the future. Yifan turned his head to look at Akatsuki. Not calling you Yifan-kun? Akatsuki turned to look at Yifan and asked in confusion. Then what should I call you? Just call me Buffon, Yifan said, turning his head away. Since he was already in disguise, he had to temporarily change his name. Buffon Yi was the name of Eldritch in his previous life. Except for a few people, no one knew this name, including Jin-chan and Yi-yun. Buffon? Yi Buffon? Akatsuki asked with a frown. Tin Leaf Buffon, Yifan said to Akatsuki. Got it. Akatsuki nodded. She understood Yifan's intention. If she kept calling him Yifan-kun, no matter how Yifan disguised himself, outsiders might still see through his identity. Only by changing his name would he be able to hide his identity. The two of them flew above the clouds for more than an hour. When they arrived above Peng City, the sky had turned dark. Akatsuki, who was above the clouds, saw Yifan slowing down and asked, Are we here? We're here. Yifan looked down and said, This is Peng City. The river under our feet should be the Sisui River. Akatsuki immediately looked down when she heard this. After more than an hour, she was no longer as afraid as before. Below them, the lights of the houses were like stars in the sky. The mountains and trees were filled with shadows. A wide river stretched across the land like a jade belt. Stand firm. We're going down, Yifan said as he slowly descended toward the shore of the Sisui River. Shwa. When they were about 100 feet above the ground, the two of them flashed and instantly disappeared into thin air. In the next instant, they appeared in the woods beside the river. A height of 100 feet was not a problem for Akatsuki. This is the Sisui River? After they landed, Akatsuki asked. Shoo. Yifan put his index finger to his mouth and made a shushing gesture, indicating that Akatsuki should not make a sound. He felt that something was wrong. Silence. A deathly silence. Besides the sound of the flowing river, he could not hear any living creatures. Yifan frowned and immediately squatted down to carefully observe the grass under his feet. It was already spring, and this place was close to the river. Logically speaking, there should be a lot of insects in the woods. However, on the grass under their feet, there was not a single insect. What's wrong? Seeing Yifan so nervous, Akatsuki also squatted down. There's something strange here, Yifan said as he looked around. What's strange? Akatsuki asked in a low voice. It's too quiet here, Yifan said to Akatsuki. Hearing Yifan's words, Akatsuki realized that something was really wrong. Wait for me here. I'll go up and have a look, Yifan said and disappeared. Be careful. Before she could say the word, Yifan had disappeared. Shwa. Yifan appeared above the clouds again. He channeled his spiritual power to his eyes and ears and carefully observed the Sisui River. Sure enough, he found some clues. The banks of the Sisui River which stretched for hundreds of miles, were completely silent. All the living creatures were hiding, as if they were hiding from something terrible. Not only that, within dozens of miles of the shore, all the houses were closed. The houses were dark, and there was no one. Could it be? Yifan suddenly remembered the 1,000-ghost array that Matsumoto Takeyoshi mentioned before they came. They were hiding from the ghosts. Yifan was shocked. Boom! Just as Yifan was thinking, a huge roar came from the distance. Yifan raised his head and looked in the direction of the sound. Chapter 358. Whoosh! The blast from the light beam instantly dispersed, and Yifan's white robe fluttered in the wind. 1,000-ghost array. Yifan frowned. What a powerful array! Whoosh! Just as Yifan was frowning, the surface of the Sisui River in the distance suddenly began to fog. The fog was so thick that it covered the sky and the earth as it rushed along the river. In the thick fog, there were many figures and ghostly cries, as if there were countless ghosts filling the air. This scene reminded Yifan of the battle in the ancestral home, when Xiao activated the 100-ghost Nightwalker array. Grandpa Yun once told him that the 100-ghost Nightwalker array's power was amazing. Wherever it passed, there would be corpses everywhere. If the 100-ghost Nightwalker array was already like this, wouldn't it be invincible? Not good. Looking at the fog that was rushing towards them, Yifan suddenly remembered that Akatsuki was still waiting for him on the ground. Akatsuki didn't know how to fly in the air, nor did she use Taoist techniques. If she was discovered by the ghosts in the fog, she would be dead. Whoosh! Yifan thought in his heart and immediately used his body movement skill, turning into a white light and rushing to the ground. Akatsuki on the ground also heard the loud noise and saw the huge Tai Chi diagram in the air. To prevent any accidents, she took the saber from her back and held it in her hand, ready to unsheath it at any time. She still didn't know that danger was approaching her. In the fog that was rushing along the river, tens of thousands of ghosts had already sensed the existence of the Yangqi. At this time, she was less than 100 feet away. A distance of 100 feet could be said to be covered in the blink of an eye for the ghosts. Because Akatsuki was at a corner, when Akatsuki heard the ghostly cries in the fog, she didn't notice anything unusual. Only when the fog appeared 10 feet away from her did she realize that she was in danger. Pop! The group of ghosts at the front of the fog saw a living thing and instantly condensed into a huge ghost face, shouting excitedly. Whoosh! Seeing that the situation was critical, Akatsuki didn't have time to think. She immediately tiptoed and used her body movement skill to jump into the air. At the same time, she took out a few yellow talismans and threw them back. These yellow talismans were the protective talismans she had obtained from a shrine in Japan before she came to the Great Ming Dynasty. It was said that they were quite effective. In a moment of desperation, she remembered these yellow talismans. Bang! 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 The yellow talismans collided with the ghost face and instantly turned into a few fireballs, disappearing without a trace. If they were ordinary ghosts, these talismans might have had some effect. However, the ones that were swarming towards her were all ferocious and malicious ghosts that had already taken form. Furthermore, there were tens of thousands of them. Not only were these talismans unable to suppress the group of ghosts, they had even stimulated their berserk nature. The giant ghost face roared madly as it chased after Yu Hongji. Although Akatsuki's speed was also amazing, compared to the ghost that didn't have a physical body, her speed was still slower. In the blink of an eye, the ghost face was less than 3 feet away from Akatsuki. Roar! As the distance was shortened, the ferocious ghost face opened its huge mouth and let out a terrifying roar. Woo! More than 10 ghosts with hair on their shoulders spewed out from the ghost face's mouth, whimpering like snakes as they pounced on Akatsuki. These ghosts had long hair and repulsive faces. They had blood-red eyes, pale white skin, long scarlet tongues, sharp nails, and a ghastly aura. At this time, Akatsuki's shadow flashed, her body movement skill was already at its peak. It seemed that this was a bad start. She was going to be devoured by these ghosts. Akatsuki frowned as she thought to herself. At this moment, even if Yifan were to lend a helping hand, he would not be able to do so even if he wanted to. Even though his cultivation level was high, he did not know any Taoist magic. He would not put himself in danger for someone who had nothing to do with him. He even wanted to preserve his life to save his wife. She didn't know why, but the image of Yifan standing in front of her and staring at her appeared in her mind again. I wonder if he will be sad after I die. Akatsuki closed her eyes as she thought to herself. Whoosh! Just as the ghosts pounced on Akatsuki's back, Yifan's figure suddenly appeared beside Akatsuki. Pa! Yifan pressed down on Akatsuki's shoulder. He didn't care if Akatsuki could take it or not. He instantly circulated 50% of his spiritual energy and used his body movement skill. Whoosh! A white light soared into the sky. Yifan instantly flew into the sky with Akatsuki, who had closed her eyes and was waiting for death. They avoided the ghost's attack. Akatsuki only felt a warm hand quickly lifting her up. She immediately opened her eyes. Yifan didn't ignore her, as she thought. Instead, he rushed down to save her without hesitation. Woo! Seeing that Akatsuki was instantly taken away by Yifan, the huge ghost face flew into a rage out of humiliation. Whoosh! The leading ghosts whimpered as they instantly broke through the thick fog and pounced on the two people in the sky again. Yifan's body movement skill was fast, but the ghosts weren't slow either. The two of them rushed into the sky one after another. Ghosts won't go away. Yifan saw that the ghosts were chasing after him. Anger rose in his heart. He stretched out his hand and single-handedly pulled out the Everflame sword from his white robe. Wong! The Everflame sword was unsheathed. He rose. Yifan hugged Akatsuki's waist with his left hand and held the Everflame sword with his right hand. His body suddenly turned around. He moved with the sword, and the sword turned with him. He swung it down at the ghosts that were rushing up crazily. Chapter 359. The crazy and tyrannical ghosts would never have thought that the two of them would suddenly switch from defense to offense. In the blink of an eye, the two met in an instant. Bang! Roar! After meeting the flaming whip of the Leaf Fire sword, the oncoming ghosts were instantly smashed into pieces. After a series of wails, they were instantly reduced to nothingness. As the saying goes, even immortals are afraid of a puff of smoke. The Leaf Fire sword was a divine weapon of fire. Yang energy rose, and the flames were blazing. The power of this sword was so strong that even Daluo golden immortals would be afraid of it, not to mention these ghosts. Before they could understand what was going on, they were instantly burned into nothingness by the domineering flames of the Leaf Fire sword. Boom! After the red, flaming whip penetrated the ghosts, its power did not diminish. It continued to whip toward the thick fog in the Sisui River. Whoa! In the thick fog, blood-curdling screams were unceasingly heard. The continuous thick fog had been whipped out by this flaming whip, leaving behind a hole that was more than 10 feet wide. Chi! The flaming whip went straight into the river, and a large amount of water vapor rose instantly. The huge ghostly face disappeared. The thick fog that was cut in half by the sword slowly gathered together and continued to flow forward along the Sisui River. The 10,000 ghosts were already shocked by Yifan's move and did not dare to be presumptuous anymore. Whoosh! Yifan sheathed his sword and let go of Akatsuki's waist. Are you okay? Yifan looked at Akatsuki. I'm fine. Akatsuki replied nervously. When Yifan hugged her waist, her heart was pounding. Until now, it had not calmed down. This was the first time a man hugged her. It seems that this is the 10,000 ghost formation that Matsumoto Takeyoshi was talking about. Yifan looked at the fog rising from the river and said, "What do we do next?" Akatsuki asked Yifan. "Let's go over there and take a look," Yifan said as he looked toward the east. In the east, the gigantic Taiji 8 trigrams diagram was hovering in the air and the yin-yang fishes in the 8 trigrams diagram were constantly rotating. Yes, Akatsuki nodded. Ever since she had followed Yi Fan out on missions, she had unknowingly developed a habit of letting Yi Fan make all the decisions. If Yi Fan asked her to take off her clothes, she would take them off. If Yi Fan asked her to wear a mask, she would wear a mask. In short, she would do whatever Yi Fan said. In the beginning, she obeyed Yi Fan because of Matsumoto Takayoshi's orders. But now, she was willing to listen to Yi Fan from the bottom of her heart. "Let's go," Yi Fan said as he activated his movement technique and flew up into the clouds, slowly flying towards the east. 300 miles away, by the Sisui River, on the wide grassland, 10 Taoist experts were in their respective positions. Their hands were forming hand seals, and they were concentrating on activating the Taoist secret technique, Thousand Ghost Array. They wore golden silk Taoist robes, pure gold taiji hairpins, and cloud-treading shoes. They sat cross-legged with their eyes closed, and their expressions were solemn. Qian, Kuan, Zhun Sun, Kan Li, Jin, and Dui, the yin-yang Dharma eyes. At this time, each of them was emitting a dazzling golden light. The 10 golden lights were connected and shot up into the sky, forming an extremely huge golden taiji 8 trigrams diagram. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In the air, the golden taiji 8 trigrams diagram flashed and slowly rotated. Woo! Countless black gas whimpered and rushed into the taiji 8 trigrams diagram in the air from all directions. Then, in an instant, it surged out from the array on the ground and turned into white fog, continuously flowing into the Sisui River. The Thousand Ghosts Array came from here. Akatsuki exclaimed in a low voice above the clouds. "Shoo!" Yi Fan signaled Akatsuki to keep quiet. Their mission was to observe all the movements here, not to disturb them in their search for the cauldron. Yu Hongji understood and didn't say anything else. "Thousand Ghosts Array, listen to my command. Enter the Sisui River and help me search for the cauldron." The 2 Taoist priests guarding the yin-yang fish array on the ground changed their hand seals and said in unison, "Whoosh," as the black gas in the air completely turned into white fog and poured out. The thick fog covering the surface of the Sisui River instantly seeped into the water. The Thousand Ghosts Array began to enter the water to search for the cauldron. Yi Fan thought to himself, "Brother Yuan Shan, what will the result be this time?" The Taoist priest guarding the Yin fish array opened his eyes and asked the Taoist priest sitting opposite him, "Brother Yuan Shan?" Yi Fan frowned. Could this person be the Mao Shan sect leader, Lu Yuan Shan? It should be him. The Taoist priest opposite him slowly opened his eyes and said, "Brother Xuanji, don't worry. The power of the Thousand Ghosts Array is amazing. In less than 2 hours, the entire Sisui River will be turned upside down. Whether or not there is a cauldron, we will know in a while." Xuanji. This person below was the evil Xuanji who faked the imperial edict and framed the Yi clan for conspiracy. Above the clouds, Yi Fan clenched his fists. If it weren't for the big picture, Yi Fan really wanted to take this Taoist life. "I hope this trip won't disappoint the emperor," Xuanji said pretentiously. When the Qin emperor was patrolling the east and saw the appearance of the Zhou cauldron, he sent people into the water to retrieve it. When they came out of the water, a dragon came out of the cauldron and bit off the rope holding it down. The divine cauldron sank into the water again. Lu Yuanshan said, "I think the divine cauldron should still be in the Sisui River." The Qin emperor was tyrannical and immoral. How can he be compared to the emperor? Xuanji said as he cupped his fists in the air. The emperor's merits and virtues are comparable to Yao and Shun. If the divine cauldron is really in the Sisui River, it will definitely be recovered. Brother Xuanji is right. Lu Yuanshan smiled and nodded in agreement. The other 8 Taoist priests looked cold and did not say a word. Yi Fan could see that they were unwilling to do this. Chapter 360. The thick white mist that had seeped into the river was once again seen on the surface of the river. That time, the ghosts in the mist were extremely quiet. Not a single sound was heard, and it was eerily quiet. "What's going on?" Xuanji immediately stood up and frowned when he saw that. The myriad ghost formation had just been laid, and the ghosts had just entered the river. Why did they all suddenly appear? Did they find the divine cauldron? That's impossible. Even if the ghosts found the divine cauldron, they should still be like this, Xuanji thought with a frown. Seeing tens of thousands of ghosts hovering in place with their heads lowered, Lu Yuanshan felt something was off. He slowly stood up and carefully observed the ghosts in the mist. Lu Yuanshan was the sect master of the Maoshan sect. His Maoshan spells were shocking, and his yin-yang eyes were unmatched. In the two realms of yin and yang, there was nothing that he could not see, from the immortals of heaven to the evil spirits of hell. Even though the ghosts were shrouded in the mist, he was still able to see them clearly. Lu Yuanshan's brows immediately furrowed when he saw them. The tens of thousands of ghosts in the mist all had their heads lowered as they floated quietly on the river. They were no longer as violent as they had been before. Could it be that someone had tampered with the thousand ghost array? Lu Yuanshan turned around to look at the other 8 sect masters. As he looked, his eyes were as sharp as knives. Xuanji had sent people to inform the sect masters of the various sects about the myriad ghost formation. However, the answers he received were all over the place. Some claimed to be sick, some claimed to be in isolation, some resigned as sect masters, and some claimed that their spells were not up to par. What was even more infuriating were Zhang Xiaoyang of Longhu Mountain and Yu Xingqian of Chuanjin sect. Both of them disappeared without a trace, and no one knew where they went. The Ziyang Temple's answer was the most straightforward among all of the sections. They rejected the offer outright. That angered Xuanji and Lu Yuanshan. They expected people to reject the offer, but they did not expect that none of the sect masters, other than those from the Maoshan sect, would agree to the offer. If they did not want to come, then it was easy to deal with them. "Didn't you claim to be sick? I'll grant you your wish." Lu Yuanshan and Xuanji killed Wang Zhenren of Lingbao sect and Master Li of Nihility sect in the name of visiting a sick person. "Weren't you in seclusion?" "That's easy. I'll kill a few of your proud disciples. Let's see if you'll come out of seclusion." In a single night, Lu Yuanshan had killed several senior disciples of Tranquility sect and Golden Pill sect. The news of the sudden deaths of the 2 sect masters and the tragic deaths of several of their disciples spread like wildfire in Jianghu. All of the sect masters wanted to turn against Lu Yuanshan, yet they were unable to do so. While Lu Yuanshan was a vicious and insidious person, his training was extremely high. He had mastered the Maoshan's secret manual, the secrets of truth, to perfection. He had also mastered the soul-shattering palm, a secret skill of the Maoshan sect. Even if all of the sect masters were to join forces, they would still be no match for Lu Yuanshan. Furthermore, there were many disciples of the Maoshan sect, and they had Xuanji backing them. Going against those two was tantamount to throwing an egg at a rock. In order to protect the lives of their disciples and to ensure that their sects could be passed on, the sect masters had no choice but to take the initiative to express their willingness to work for the imperial court and work together to set up a formation to search for the cauldron. Lu Yuanshan and Xuanji did not push things too far. After the sect masters volunteered themselves, Xuanji rewarded the sects in the name of the imperial court, renovated their Taoist temples, and expanded their territories as a show of appeasement. A slap in the face and a sweet date in return was a well-tested strategy. Lu Yuanshan and Xuanji did not do anything to the Ziyang Temple, Longhu Mountain, and Chuanjin sect. They were no fools, and they knew that they could not afford to fall out with those 3 sects just yet. Zhang Xiaoyang and Yu Xingqian were not only of high cultivation, but they were also highly respected in their sections. They could rally all of their members to work together, and any of those 2 sects would be able to take on the Maoshan sect. As for the Ziyang Temple, they dared not offend them even more. The Ziyang Temple had always been the most prominent of the Taoist sects, and they rarely interacted with other Taoist sections. While they had few disciples, they were all experts among experts. Qing Chenzi was even more so. It was rumored in Jianghu that he had become an immortal. While there was no telling if the rumors were true, his strength was still evident. Lu Yuanshan saw that the ghosts were behaving strangely, and he thought that one of the sect masters held a grudge against him and had done something to the myriad ghost formation. The remaining 8 experts were also confused by what they were seeing. They saw Lu Yuanshan staring at them, and they met his gaze without hesitation. They would not feel guilty if they were not thieves. Lu Yuanshan turned around and looked at the ghosts in the fog again, seeing that none of them were avoiding his gaze. It was obvious that none of the other sect masters had done anything to the myriad ghost formation. Even if they were to take a step back, they would not have been able to do something like that. Yi Fan, who was high up in the clouds, was also puzzled by what he saw. While he did not know much about Taoist arts, he was still able to guess what was going on. It was obvious that something was wrong with the myriad ghost formation. Those Taoist fighters would not have reacted like that otherwise. You guys hold the fort. I'll go take a look, Lu Yuanshan said as he walked out of the 8 trigrams formation. Brother Lu, be careful, Xuanji reminded Lu Yuanshan. Don't worry, Imperial Advisor. Lu Yuanshan nodded at Xuanji. He then tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and leaped to the banks of the Sisui River. Yu Xingqian of the Chuanjin sect and Zhang Xiaoyang of Longhu Mountain might have been on par with him when it came to fighting demons and monsters. However, when it came to slaying evil spirits, exorcising evil spirits, and destroying zombies, no one from the Maoshan sect would dare to claim to be the best. As the saying went, the strong were bold. Despite facing the ghosts before him, Lu Yuanshan's expression remained unchanged, and he remained calm. He was the sect master of the Maoshan sect. While others feared ghosts, the ghosts feared him. Chapter 361. If it was during normal times, the ghosts would have already kept a respectful distance from him and even bowed down to worship him. For them, Lu Yuanshan was even more terrifying than ghost messengers. If ghost messengers caught them, at most they would be sent back to hell. But if they fell into Lu Yuanshan's hands, the result would not be so lucky. If Lu Yuanshan was in a good mood, they could be considered lucky and could escape. If he was in a bad mood, then they would be miserable. Either their Yin spirit would be taken away, or their primordial spirit would be directly destroyed by his thunder palm. Yin spirit was the source of the ghost's power. After being taken away, it would be no different from an ordinary wandering soul. However, at this moment, the tens of thousands of ghosts floating in the fog actually turned a blind eye to Lu Yuanshan's arrival. Seeing this situation, Lu Yuanshan frowned. The reaction of the tens of thousands of ghosts had greatly exceeded his expectations. The actions of the tens of thousands of ghosts at this time were uniform. Shua! Lu Yuanshan raised his arm, and a golden talisman instantly appeared between his fingers. Bang! The golden talisman suddenly burned. Shua! Lu Yuanshan raised one hand, and the burning golden talisman directly flew towards the group of ghosts in the fog. He wanted to see what kind of reaction this group of ghosts would have when faced with the danger of their souls being destroyed. Boom! The golden light flashed, and dozens of ghosts' primordial spirits were instantly destroyed by Lu Yuanshan's golden talisman. Their souls were scattered and turned into nothingness. The dense fog was blasted open, and a huge hole with a radius of 1 zhang was blasted open. Meanwhile, the other ghosts remained motionless. They continued to lower their heads and float in the same place. This scene made Lu Yuanshan, who thought highly of himself, instantly shrink his pupils. These tens of thousands of ghosts would rather their souls be destroyed than to move. How was this possible? Lu Yuanshan was shocked. These ghosts were not controlled by someone and had not lost their consciousness. How could they have such a reaction? Lu Yuanshan looked towards the Sisui River. As far as his eyes could see, the group of ghosts were all in the same position. Their hands were hanging down and their heads were lowered. They were saluting. Lu Yuanshan suddenly came back to his senses. Who could have this ability to make the tens of thousands of ghosts salute? They would rather die than be willing. Obviously, this person was not him. Lu Yuanshan's heart at this time thought of a person. In today's world, perhaps only this person could make the tyrannical tens of thousands of ghosts willingly salute him. The head of the Myriad Immortals Tower, by Sheng. Bai Sheng. Lu Yuanshan looked around and said in a clear voice, I didn't expect you to be interested in these 9 cauldrons. Bai Sheng? Yi Fan, who was above the clouds, immediately exclaimed in a low voice when he heard the name. The Tower Master of the Myriad Immortals Tower, his best friend from his previous life, Bai Sheng? Wasn't he in Japan? What, he's here too? Yi Fan was not the only one who was shocked. Bai Hu, who was lying in his hat, was also shocked. As soon as she heard Yi Fan mention Bai Sheng, Bai Hu immediately stuck her furry head out of the hat and looked down. When she saw the dense group of ghosts and the Taoist priests in the distance, Bai Hu immediately shrank her head back into her hat in fright. Whether it was Taoist priests or evil spirits, there was nothing that it liked. How dare you call Tower Lord by her name? A clear voice came from all directions. It was the voice of a man. His voice wasn't loud, but it did enter his ears and reverberate endlessly. Whoosh! A man in white instantly appeared on the other side of the Sisui River, facing Lu Yuanshan across the river. Lu Yuanshan narrowed his eyes and began to size up this man. This person was dressed in elegant white robes, with a Confucian headband on his head and a jade belt around his waist. He had a delicate face, red lips, white teeth, and held a white jade fan in his hand. He looked to be in his 20s. Lu Yuanshan only needed to use his yin-yang dharma to see that this person was not a living person. So you're from a myriad immortal tower, Lu Yuanshan said with a smile. This person's ghostly aura and the words he said just now were enough to guess his identity. I'm Yin Hua, the guardian of the myriad immortal tower. Greetings, Sect Master Lu. The white-robed man held a white fan and cupped his fists. Whoosh! When the ghosts in the fog saw the left guardian of the myriad immortal tower appear, they instantly turned to the white-robed man and bowed their heads in respect. Although the ghosts in the fog were extremely violent, they were not without consciousness. For hundreds of years, the 3 words myriad immortal tower could be said to be a sacred existence in the hearts of all the ghosts who had died of violent death. They were ghosts who had died of violent death. The netherworld did not accept them, and they could not reincarnate as humans. In addition, most of them had suffered great injustice in their lives. Therefore, after a long time, their resentment would soar to the sky and they would become violent. They entered people's houses and took people's lives, hoping to be reincarnated again. However, even if they were to enter the cycle of reincarnation, they would suffer from evil retribution because of the heavy sin of killing. The myriad immortal tower created by Sheng completely changed this situation and gave the ghosts a hope. As long as they entered the myriad immortal tower, they would have hope of dispelling their violent aura. They might even be able to cultivate and become the freest body in the world, a ghost immortal. Since he was considered of the ghosts, they would naturally treat him with respect. Ghost friends, the white-robed man said loudly to the tens of thousands of ghosts in the thick fog. Today, all of you have become lonely souls because of the grave sins you committed in your previous lives. You deserve this retribution. Today, Master Bai of the Myriad Immortals Tower is merciful and can't bear to see all of you suffering. So he specially ordered me to come and save all of you from the sea of suffering. If all of you have this intention, then come into my gourd. Whoosh! As the white-robed man spoke, he stretched out his hand, and a half-foot-tall jade gourd instantly floated above his palm. Ha! The white-robed man opened the jade gourd stopper. Woo! In the gloomy fog, the ghosts cried softly. Chapter 362. The white-robed man's words allowed them to regain their humanity. Thinking of the injustice they had suffered in their lives, and thinking of the evil deeds they had done after becoming a ghost, the ghosts all wept bitterly. Their cries were filled with sorrow, and their intentions were heartfelt. Even the sect masters not far away felt deeply moved and ashamed after hearing this. They were all elites of the Taoist sect, the sect masters of the various sections. Exorcising ghosts and evil spirits was a common occurrence for them. Towards evil spirits that had lost their humanity, they only had one way to deal with them, and that was to kill them. and the scene in front of them gave these high and mighty sect masters a vivid lesson. It was said that Bai Sheng was once a malicious spirit. Later on, when he was looking for a substitute, he suddenly repented and cried bitterly. From then on, he diligently cultivated and created the 10,000 Immortal Tower, creating a shelter for these lonely and fearful ghosts to change their fates. A malicious spirit could comprehend to such a level. How could these Taoist elites not feel ashamed? Whoosh! The thick fog that was originally floating on the surface of the Sisui River began to boil. All the ghosts turned into wisps of white mist and flew into the jade gourd in the white-robed man's hand. What a great 10,000 Immortal Tower! What a compassionate Bai Sheng! Yi Fan, who was above the clouds, felt proud that he once had such a close friend. If it wasn't for the fact that he had a mission, he really wanted this white-robed man to take him to see these two friends of his from his previous life. Whoosh! As the last wisp of white mist entered the jade gourd, the white-robed man plugged the mouth of the gourd with a jade stopper. What is the meaning of this? Lu Yuanshan raised his eyebrows and looked at the white-robed man. Nothing. The white-robed man tied the jade gourd to his waist and smiled without looking up. I am following orders. You are following orders? I am also following orders. Lu Yuanshan coldly said. You're making things difficult for me. Sect Master Lu is really joking. The white-robed man opened the white jade fan and gently shook it while smiling. When have I ever made things difficult for you? You took away all the ghosts. How can I find the cauldron? Lu Yuanshan stared at the white-robed man. You should know that this is an imperial order. Could it be that you want to go against the imperial court? Huh? After hearing Lu Yuanshan's words, the white-robed man was stunned for a moment before laughing out loud. What are you laughing at? Lu Yuanshan asked coldly. Sect Master Lu is really interesting, the white-robed man said after he stopped laughing. Whether you follow the Emperor's orders or not is your business. I only follow the orders of my master. I am already dead. Why should I go against the imperial court? As for me taking away the 10,000 ghosts, it has nothing to do with you, Headmaster Lu. The 10,000 ghosts are not related to Headmaster Lu, so why can't I take them away? Besides, this 10,000 ghosts wanted to go with me of their own accord. I didn't take them by force. What's wrong with that? The white-robed man waved his jade fan while looking at Lu Yuanshan on the other side of the river with a smile. Lu Yuanshan was rendered speechless by the white-robed man's words. It's getting late. I have to go back and report. Sect Master Lu, farewell. The white-robed man said as he turned around and prepared to leave. Halt! Lu Yuanshan said coldly. The white-robed man stopped and slowly turned around. What? Is there something else, Headmaster Lu? The white-robed man asked with a smile. You can leave, but leave the 10,000 ghosts behind. Lu Yuanshan said coldly. The 10,000 ghosts is now a member of the 10,000 Immortals Tower. It's not up to you to decide whether they stay or not. The white-robed man smiled. I'll say it again. Leave the 10,000 ghosts behind. Lu Yuanshan stared coldly at the white-robed man. Otherwise, don't blame this sect master for being impolite. Oh. The white-robed man put away his jade fan and raised his eyebrows at Lu Yuanshan. Sect Master Lu, are you threatening me? The Emperor's orders cannot be disobeyed. Lu Yuanshan said. Leave the 10,000 ghosts behind, and I won't make things difficult for you. I'll let you go back to the 10,000 Ghost Tower. Lu Yuanshan deliberately called the 10,000 Ghost Tower to show his contempt. How could a place wherein ghosts gathered cause such a big commotion? How dare they call themselves 10,000 immortals? Secondly, he reminded the white-robed man that he was the Maoshan sect master. It was more than enough to deal with Ian Ghost. The Emperor's orders? The white-robed man sneered. You're an outsider. Instead of cultivating and comprehending the Tao, you spend all your time mingling with the scum of the imperial court. Aren't you afraid that the ancestors will punish you? I'm only talking to you because of Sect Master Lu's face. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you're the Maoshan sect master. You should know that there's always someone better than you. Lu Yuanshan's face turned red and white at the white-robed man's words. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He wanted nothing more than to destroy the white-robed man's primordial spirit. Enough nonsense. Are you going to hand it over or not? Lu Yuanshan's expression was fierce. Forgive me for not being able to comply. The white-robed man said calmly. Wandering ghost, stubborn. Lu Yuanshan scolded as he struck out a palm at the white-robed man on the other side of the river. Whoosh! A golden light shot out from Lu Yuanshan's palm and headed straight for the white-robed man. You have skills, but no Tao. You're not worthy of your position. The white-robed man replied to Lu Yuanshan while opening his jade fan and waving it at the incoming golden light. Whoosh! A white arc instantly shot out from the white jade fan and met Lu Yuanshan's golden light at high speed. The two rays of light, one golden and one white, met in an instant. Boom! A loud sound was heard, and a shockwave spread in all directions. The shockwave instantly stirred up a towering curtain of water dozens of feet high on the surface of the Sisui River. Chapter 363. That scene shocked the Taoists who were not far away. They had never seen or heard of a ghost being able to block the move of the Maoshan sect leader so easily. Lu Yuanshan's face was ashen. While he had only used less than 20% of his power in that move, it was still a devastating blow to the ghost. Even a century-old ghost who had been cultivating for many years would be reduced to nothingness in an instant, let alone a common ghost. He did not expect the white-robed man to be able to nullify his move so easily. He was the Maoshan sect leader, and yet he was able to fight a ghost to a standstill. If word of that got out, he would be a laughingstock. He had to kill that white-robed man no matter what. Lu Yuanshan's lips curled up at that thought, and a murderous intent rose in his heart. A thick murderous aura spread out in an instant. Behind him, the expressions of the 9 Taoists, including Xuanji, changed drastically. Lu Yuanshan had a habit of smiling like that every time he was about to kill someone, so much so that the Jianghu people gave him a nickname, the Smiling King of Hell. The meaning was simple. Anyone who saw that smile would be sent to meet the King of Hell. I'll let you die a quick death today. Lu Yuanshan smiled. As he spoke, he lowered his finger and formed a seal under the sleeve of his golden-threaded Taoist robe. Virum. As the seal appeared, a layer of green light began to appear on Lu Yuanshan's body. Then I'd like to see it. The white-robed man waved his jade fan and smiled. Lu Yuanshan smiled and did not say anything. Virum. The green light on Lu Yuanshan's body became brighter and brighter. The light was so bright that it illuminated all the vegetation within 3 feet of him. Lu Yuanshan slowly raised his right hand with his palm flat. Whoosh! As the green light around Lu Yuanshan grew brighter, his right palm became extremely bright, as if it was a green palm of light. Soul-shattering palm. The white-robed man frowned slightly when he saw that. The soul-shattering palm was a unique skill of the Maoshan sect created by the Maoshan sect leader, Lu Ji. It was extremely powerful. Not to mention ordinary masters, even spirits and ghosts who had been cultivating for years would have their souls shattered and turned into nothingness when they encountered the soul-shattering palm. Because this palm technique was too overbearing, Lu Ji only used it to kill soulless zombies. He only taught this technique to 2 people. One was his only son, Lu Yuanshan, and the other was his disciple, Chui Ziwen. It was said that this set of palm techniques had a total of 7 realms: yellow, green, cyan, blue, red, purple, and gold. Every time one's cultivation increased by 1 realm, the light emitted would change. Judging from the light emitted from Lu Yuanshan's body, he was using the 3rd level technique. Although this Lu Yuanshan was treacherous and cunning, but in terms of cultivation, it could be said that he had inherited Lu Ji's teachings. Perhaps he had already reached the 7th level of the golden light gathering. He had to be careful today. As the white-robed man thought about it, he also began to move. Shua! He raised his right hand and opened his palm. A 5-inch, dazzling white ball of light instantly appeared in the center of his palm. At the same time, his whole body emitted a dazzling white light. The dazzling white light illuminated the empty space around him, making it seem as bright as day. Buzz! The white ball of light began to spin slowly in the white-robed man's hand. The white-robed man gently closed his eyes. "What a strong inchi!" Xianji exclaimed. This white-robed man in front of him was indeed extraordinary. He could actually turn his inchi into spiritual energy. Buzz! As the white-robed man continued to channel his power, the white ball of light in his hand shone brightly and grew to a foot in length. Soul-shattering palm. 3rd level, jade breaking green light. Lu Yuanshan shouted softly. His golden Taoist robe fluttered without any wind, and the green palm of light struck at the white-robed man from a distance. Shua! 10 feet long green palm shadows rushed out from Lu Yuanshan's palms at an extremely fast speed, continuously rushing towards the white-robed man. It was completely different from other palm techniques. The essence of the soul-shattering palm lay in the strength of these 13 palm shadows. Each palm shadow was stronger than the previous one, and each palm shadow was stronger than the previous one. If the opponent could withstand the first palm shadow, the second palm shadow would catch up and combine with the first palm shadow. When the 13 palm shadows completely overlapped, the opponent's strength would have been completely neutralized by the first few palm shadows, and he could only sit and wait for death. Netherworld Divine Palm, 3rd form, exterminating spirit and slicing bone. Seeing Lu Yuanshan make his move, the white-robed man did not dare to be negligent. His white robe fluttered in the wind, and his black hair soared to the sky. He pushed the dazzling white ball of light in his hand towards the cyan palm shadows that filled the sky. Shua! With a cold shout from the white-robed man, the white ball of light instantly left his hand and turned into a white light palm that was 1 foot in length. The white light palm was as white as snow and as bright as jade, and it whistled towards the green palm shadows. Bang! An earth-shattering sound rang out. 2 brilliant palms, one green and one white, instantly collided with each other. Clap, clap, clap. Immediately after, the 12 cyan palm shadows merged with the first palm shadow. Boom! A huge green and white shock wave instantly spread out from the 2 large light palms. Whoosh! Gales swept up in all directions, and the shock wave created a gash that was over 10 feet wide in the river below them. Chapter 364. Wong! Lu Yuanshan's cyan palm was flowing with cyan light, and his power did not decrease. Wong! The white palm of the man in white was shining brightly, and his momentum was like a rainbow. 1 cyan and 1 white palm began to consume power. For a time, both sides were in a stalemate. Shua! Seeing his soul-breaking palm was blocked by the opponent, Lu Yuanshan suddenly urged the spiritual power in his body, and his hand exerted force. Wong! The cyan palm in the air suddenly rose to 3 feet. Shua! The man in white did not show weakness, and with a sudden push of his palm, the huge white palm also rose to 3 feet. What a powerful palm! After the headmasters landed, they were all shocked. Lu Yuanshan's soul-breaking palm was strong and fierce, and the man in white's netherworld divine palm was soft and endless. 1 yin and 1 yang, 1 hard and 1 soft. It could be said that they were evenly matched. Lu Yuanshan's forehead began to ooze dense sweat, although the power of this soul-breaking palm was amazing, but it consumed a lot of spiritual power. The man in white was the opposite. His face was calm, and there was no sign of exhaustion. Obviously, Lu Yuanshan's physical strength began to weaken. "Headmaster Lu, what's wrong with you?" The man in white saw Lu Yuanshan's physical strength was gradually weakening, and he began to mock him. Originally, he thought that even if Lu Yuanshan did not reach the 7th level of his father, Lu Ji, he would have cultivated to the 5th or 6th level. Now it seems that he overestimated him. The man in white was right. Although this Lu Yuanshan was very smart, and his aptitude was outstanding, but his morals were corrupt, and his heart was not right. One must know that to cultivate such an orthodox an overbearing secret technique. One must have a kind heart and a compassionate heart. Otherwise, it would be difficult to dispel the evil aura brought by the cultivation technique, and thus the influence would reach a higher level. Therefore, although he had received the teachings of his father, but no matter how hard he cultivated, after the third level of the soul-breaking palm, he had been stagnant. Not only did he not reach a higher level, but his temperament changed greatly, and evil aura was everywhere. Lu Yuanshan's face turned green from anger. He wanted to make things difficult for the white-robed man, but now that his spirit chi was insufficient, coupled with the fact that he had used up a lot of energy to activate the 10,000 ghost array, he could only fight until here today. If this continued, who knows what would happen. I used the 1,000 ghost array and consumed a lot of spiritual power. Today, I will let you go. Lu Yuanshan said, and withdrew his spiritual power. The cyan palm in the air gradually dissipated. Lu Yuanshan used the excuse that he didn't have enough spiritual power to use the 1,000 ghost array to cover up the fact that his skill was inferior to his opponent's. The man in white smiled and withdrew his spiritual power. Since Lu Yuanshan had retreated, there was no need for him to pursue the matter. After all, his mission this time was to collect the 10,000 ghosts, not to fight. After Lu Yuanshan withdrew his spiritual power turn. Headmaster Lu. The white-robed man called out from behind Lu Yuanshan. Lu Yuanshan stopped, but did not turn around. Go back and tell that scum, Xinji, I don't care what he is looking for, but if he misuses the 1,000 ghost array again, be careful of encountering ghosts at night. The man in white calmly said to Lu Yuanshan. On the surface, this sentence seemed to be talking about Xinji, but in fact, it was a warning to Lu Yuanshan. Without Lu Yuanshan, Xinji and the others would not be able to activate the 1,000 ghost array. Lu Yuanshan did not answer and directly left. Shua. The figure of the white-robed man moved and disappeared. Who won? Above the clouds, Akatsuki asked Yifan. With her cultivation, she could roughly see that there were two people fighting on the ground, but she could not hear any conversation. She saw the two people fighting and stopped, and was puzzled, so she asked Yifan. The winner pretended not to win. The loser pretended not to lose. Yifan said, the winner pretended not to win. The loser pretended not to lose? Akatsuki became more and more confused. We can go now, Yifan said to Akatsuki. Go now, Akatsuki said, glancing down. Then they don't worry about them. Yifan glanced at the Taoist priests on the ground and said, the 1,000 ghost array is gone. What else can they use to search for the cauldron? Then where are we going now? Akatsuki asked Yifan. Back to the East Sea? Let's find an inn to stay tonight, Yifan said. We'll go back tomorrow morning. Akatsuki replied. Let's go. Yifan said, activating the rising spell, and slowly flew away from the Sisui River with Akatsuki. Half an hour later, Yifan and Akatsuki arrived at a remote inn hundreds of miles away. Are you two staying here? The waiter saw that there were guests and immediately greeted them. A pair of eyes swept back and forth between the masks of the two people. The masks on the faces of the two people in front of him attracted him. The two masks were flowing with brilliant colors, flashing with light. At first glance, he could tell that they were rare treasures, definitely not ordinary. Give me 2 rooms, and prepare a meal and send it to her room, Yifan said as he took out a silver ingot, and then slightly exerted force in his hand. Crack! The silver ingot broke with a sound. The waiter was instantly dumbfounded. How strong must his hand be to be able to break a silver ingot in half with one hand? If you look at it again, be careful that you won't be able to spend the money, Yifan said as he threw half of the silver ingot into the waiter's hand. Just now, the greedy eyes of the waiter did not escape Yifan's eyes. The two of them were wearing gorgeous clothes and white jade crystal masks, so it was inevitable that they would attract some attention. As the saying goes, don't be afraid of thieves stealing, but be afraid of thieves thinking about you. Yifan did this to warn the waiter not to play any tricks on him, or he would lose his life. Yes, yes. The waiter nodded and bowed, trembling. I I don't dare. I'll arrange a room for the two of you. Follow me. The waiter said while trembling with fear and respectfully walked up the stairs. Chapter 365. Why do you want a meal? Aren't you going to eat? Akatsuki asked Yifan as she walked. I'm not hungry now. If I'm hungry, I have cooked beef here. Yifan replied. Akatsuki nodded. The two of them quickly arrived at their respective rooms. Their rooms were not far from each other, only a few steps away. You should rest. See you tomorrow morning. After sending the waiter away, Yifan said to Akatsuki, you should rest early too. Akatsuki replied. Yifan nodded, pushed open the door, and entered the room, turning around to close the door. Akatsuki also pushed open the door and entered her room. After Yifan entered the room, he did not stop at all. Instead, he went straight to the window and opened it. This place was remote, and it was close to midnight. On the street, other than the occasional knock of the watchman and the barking of wild dogs, there was no other movement. Swoosh! Yifan used his movement technique and flew out of the window. A shadow flew straight into the clouds. The moment the 1,000 ghost array was activated, it was directly taken away by the protector of the 10,000 Immortals Tower. In this way, he did not know whether there was a cauldron in the Sisui River. The current plan was to take advantage of this opportunity and go to the Sisui River to investigate. He now had the overbearing spiritual energy in his body and the water-repelling spirit pearl in his hand. It was easy for him to enter the Sisui River. He had to hide this matter from Akatsuki. The reason was very simple. What he wanted was the patterns on the 9 cauldrons. As long as he obtained the patterns, there was no need to hand over the divine cauldron to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. No matter what, Akatsuki was one of Matsumoto Takeyoshi's people. Once she knew the location of the divine cauldron, she would definitely report this matter to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Although he did not care who became the emperor of the great Ming dynasty, he definitely could not help Matsumoto Takeyoshi obtain the divine cauldron. Every time Matsumoto Takeyoshi obtained a divine cauldron, he would be one step closer to obtaining the inscriptions within a cauldron. Although he and Matsumoto Takeyoshi would not go all out for the time being, he knew that sooner or later there would be a fierce battle between him and Matsumoto Takeyoshi. While he was gathering the patterns of the 9 cauldrons, he also had to stop Matsumoto Takeyoshi from obtaining the 9 cauldrons, preventing him from obtaining the power of the divine cauldrons. As Yifan was thinking, Baihu's furry head poked out of Yifan's hat. Whenever Akatsuki was with Yifan, it would never come out. The reason was simple. Other than Yifan, it did not want to be with anyone else, especially Matsumoto Takeyoshi's people. Furthermore, Akatsuki was a woman. Although it had never seen Akatsuki's true appearance, it could feel from Akatsuki's beautiful eyes that this woman was a peerless beauty. Now that Akatsuki was not by its side, it stuck its head out of the hat and enjoyed the time alone with Yifan. What's wrong? You're awake? Yifan turned his head and smiled at the white fox when he saw it poking its head out. Baihu first licked its paws a few times to wash its face, then used its pink tongue to lick Yifan's cheeks a few times as an answer. I really didn't expect you to be so good at sleeping. Yifan smiled at Baihu. Why didn't I see it before? Woo! Baihu gently knocked its head against Yifan's head as a sign of protest. Don't worry, Xiao Xiao. Yifan rubbed his head against Baihu's forehead. I will definitely find a way to restore your human body. Baihu narrowed its eyes and leaned against Yifan's neck, not moving at all. To be honest, it felt that the current situation was quite good. It was always with Yifan and never separated. If it really restored its human body, it would not have such an opportunity. Even if the 100-herb pill was placed in front of it now, it would probably hesitate. Looking at the mute Baihu on his shoulder, Yifan's heart started to feel bad. Xiao Zhao did not stay in the comfortable pear blossom palace, but instead followed him everywhere, risking its own life, and never complained. To it had already given him everything it could: time, feelings, and even its own inner core. But what about him? Ever since he met Xiao Zhao, what did he give her? How long did he accompany her? Nothing. Nothing at all. But even so, her feelings for him had never changed. When he was happy, she chose to leave. When he was in trouble, she did not hesitate to risk her life to save him. Even if she became Baihu's body, she would not leave him and would stay by his side in life and death. He, Yi Fan, was unable to return this favor. He, Yi Fan, could not accept this kind of righteousness. Thinking of this, Yi Fan's eyes turned red. Xiao Zhao, brother Yi has let you down, Yi Fan said to Baihu on his shoulder. Baihu looked up at Yi Fan, then shook its head. In its eyes, Yi Fan did not owe it anything. Everything was done by its own will. The result it wanted was very simple. As long as Yi Fan was happy, it would be satisfied. When this matter is over, I'll go beg Granny. No matter what, I'll have her agree to let you move back to the Lingyun cave. I'll have brother Yi make it up to you. Yi Fan said. Baihu, who was lying on Yi Fan's shoulder, did not move. Its eyes flashed with tears as it quietly looked at the crescent moon in Yi Kong's head, letting the wind blow. The man and the fox quickly arrived at the sky above the Sisui River. At this time, the Sisui River was sparkling and flowing slowly. There was no longer any mist. In the dense forest on both sides of the river, the sound of insects rose and fell, one after another. It was completely different from the previous dead silence. Everything returned to normal. Xiao Zhao, sit tight. We're going into the water. Yi Fan turned his head and said to Baihu, who was on his shoulder. Wu. When it heard Yi Fan say that they were going into the water, Baihu immediately shrank back into the hat. It had the body of a fox, so it was naturally not good at swimming. Yi Fan smiled. As his body slowly descended, he began to mobilize his spiritual power to activate the water-repelling spirit pearl in his arms. Buzz! A transparent ball of light appeared around Yi Fan. The ball of light was 9 feet in size and trembled. It was like a huge bubble that completely enveloped Yi Fan. Chapter 366. Swish! When the active fish in the river saw Yi Fan enter the water, they instantly scattered. Yi Fan quietly floated in the river, feeling the power of the water avoidance pearl. Inside the bubble of the spirit pearl, Yi Fan breathed freely and did not feel any pressure. What was even more amazing was that even though Yi Fan kept breathing in the bubble, the air inside did not seem to decrease at all. This water avoidance pearl could turn the water isolated from the outside world into air. Yi Fan was shocked. It was indeed a good treasure. After familiarizing himself with the magical ability of the water avoidance pearl, Yi Fan began to look at the surrounding environment. All kinds of fish shuttled back and forth, the swaying green water plants, the colorful round stones at the bottom of the river. The scenery in front of him was simply too beautiful. The water of the Sisui River was clear, and with Yi Fan's amazing eyesight and the bright moonlight pouring down from the sky, he could see everything in the river. Yi Fan was a northerner, and this was his first time entering the water. Although he had spiritual power and the spirit pearl in his hand, he was still a little nervous and did not dare to be careless. He was not in the mood to appreciate the beautiful scenery in front of him. He carefully activated his movement technique and floated along the bottom of the river while carefully looking at the things under the water. In fact, with his current eyesight, he could see through the river to find a location of the divine cauldron. However, the underwater world was different from the ground. There was a lot of sand and sand in the water. If the divine cauldron sank into the sand, he would not be able to find it in the air. In addition, Qing Shunzi had told him that the divine cauldron was protected by a barrier. Ordinary experts would not even be able to see it. In order to be safe, he could only enter the water. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Yi Fan gradually adapted to the underwater world and began to speed up his patrol. Baihu also stuck out her head from Yi Fan's hat and looked at the colorful underwater world in amazement. Like Yi Fan, it was also her first time entering the water. Everything in the water was very fresh. For hours later, Yi Fan had already patrolled nearly 200 miles in this Sisui River, but still found nothing. Looking for things underwater was completely different from looking for things on the ground. He couldn't release his speed underwater. Once he moved too fast, the sand at the bottom of the river would be instantly stirred up. At that time, the river would be turbid, and he wouldn't be able to find anything. In addition, he was acting in secret at this time. He didn't dare to be as ostentatious as when he was looking for the soul-return grass in the northernmost glacier. If he moved too fast, there would be a lot of movement on the river's surface. It would be troublesome if he attracted the attention of others. There were still 4 hours before dawn. Within these 4 hours, he had to completely search this section of the river and return to the inn before Akatsuki woke up. As Ifan thought about it, he maintained a moderate speed and continued to search along the bottom of the river. Just like that, another 2 hours passed, but Yifan still did not find the shadow of the divine cauldron. Just as he was at a loss of what to do, he suddenly felt a huge suction force coming from 1,000 feet away. Whoosh! The bubble enveloping Yifan instantly began to accelerate as it was sucked in by this force. What was going on? Could it be an undercurrent? Yifan thought to himself. However, Yifan quickly rejected this idea. It was very simple. If it was really an undercurrent, then why did the school of fish around him not seem to be affected at all? This force seemed to be only targeting him. There was something strange about this. As Yifan thought of this, he immediately activated his body movement technique. Whoosh! Under the urging of his spiritual power, the bubble of the spirit pearl began to slow down. The further he walked, the stronger the suction force became. Yifan carefully controlled the speed of the bubble of the spirit pearl and slowly approached it. He wanted to see what was going on. When he arrived at the core of the force, the scene in front of him immediately stunned him. He was stunned on the spot. A huge black hole with a radius of more than 100 feet appeared on the riverbed in front of him. The huge suction force was coming from here. Yifan used his spiritual power to suppress the bubble of the spirit pearl at the edge of the huge hole and carefully looked at the deep hole under his feet. The black hole was so deep that he could not see the bottom. Even with Yifan's amazing eyesight, he could not see how deep this hole was. What a deep hole! Yifan was shocked. What was this hole for? Why was there such a hole in the Sisui River? Why was this huge suction force only targeting him? He looked at the black hole under his feet, and his heart was full of questions. Could it be that the divine cauldron was in this hole? This thought flashed through Yifan's mind. Woo! Baihu was frightened by the bottomless black hole in front of her and directly retreated into Yifan's hat. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Since he was already here, he could not let go of any opportunity. Yifan thought to himself and gently released the force, suppressing the bubble of the spirit pearl. Chapter 367. Darkness, Endless Darkness. After entering the black hole, Yifan felt that he was trapped in endless darkness. It was the first time he had such a feeling since he obtained spiritual energy cultivation. At this time, he couldn't even see his fingers, let alone see the things around him. Although he already had night vision, it didn't seem to be of any use in this deep hole. He couldn't go on like this. He needed a light source. Thinking of this, Yifan reached out and held the Inferno Stone in his hand. He slowly used his spiritual energy to activate the Inferno Stone. Bang! Under the activation of Yifan's spiritual energy, the Inferno Stone instantly turned into a 1-foot fireball in Yifan's hand. The red flames were fierce, and the flames were blazing. The blazing flames made Yifan feel a sense of security. This Inferno Stone could be used as a light source and a weapon. In this bottomless abyss, there might be some river spirits and water monsters. He had to be on guard. Although the Leaf Fire Sword had the same function, he didn't want to use it easily. The Leaf Fire Sword was the same as the Cold Dragon Sword. It was a peerless divine weapon. Once it appeared, it would cause some demons to covet and snatch it. Although Yifan was full of spiritual energy now, and those demons were not his opponent, he didn't want to cause any trouble now. Unless it was a last resort, he wouldn't use the divine weapon. Yifan thought as he used his spiritual energy to slow down and slowly floated down. Under the illumination of the flames, the surrounding environment began to become no longer dark. But even so, Yi Fan could only see a few dozen feet away. He carefully floated down for nearly a cup of tea's time, but he still hadn't reached the bottom. How deep was this hole? He had already dived for at least a few thousand feet. Yi Fan was shocked. With the water avoidance pearl on him and the Inferno stone in hand, Yi Fan still felt a little depressed. In the middle of the night, ordinary people had already fallen asleep and their wives and children were warming the bed. But he was in this cold Sisui River, in this bottomless abyss, in endless darkness, alone, in danger. Fortunately, Baihu was still with him in the hat, making him feel less lonely. Buzz, just as he was slowly descending, 10,000 rays of golden light instantly shot up from the bottomless black hole beneath his feet. The golden light was dazzling, and its speed was extremely fast. At this time, Yi Fan's eyes had just adapted to the darkness, so when he was suddenly illuminated by the golden light, his eyes were instantly blinded and he couldn't see anything. However, Yi Fan was someone who had gone through hundreds of battles after all. In addition, he had a strong spiritual energy and his reaction was exceptionally quick. The moment the golden light rushed up, he closed his eyes and activated his spiritual energy. In an instant, he formed a spiritual energy protective ball of light that was more than 10 meters thick around him. At the same time, it quickly floated up. Boom! A huge sound rang out. With his eyes tightly shut, Yi Fan continued to float upward. All he could feel was a buzzing sound in his ears. His head felt like it was going to split open, and his vision gradually blurred. After an unknown amount of time, Yi Fan slowly opened his eyes. He found himself lying flat on his back, and what greeted his eyes was a large stone ceiling. For some reason, this stone ceiling felt very familiar to him, as if he had seen it somewhere before. Where is this? With a splitting headache and groggy head, Yi Fan slowly sat up on the bed while rubbing his head. However, when his vision began to clear, the things in front of him immediately shocked him, and he was stunned on the spot. No wonder he felt familiar just now. The place he was in now was none other than his own cave, the Lingyun Cave. At this time, he was sitting on his own stone bed. Lingyun Cave? Yi Fan cried out in surprise. How could it be? Wasn't he looking for a cauldron in Sisui River just now? How did he suddenly return to the Lingyun Cave? Where's the deep hole? Where was the golden light? Where was Xiao Zhao? You're finally awake. Following an ethereal voice, a woman holding a copper basin appeared at the door. Clang! When she saw Yi Fan wake up, the copper basin in her hand immediately fell to the ground, and the hot water spilled all over the floor. When Yi Fan saw the face of the woman standing in front of him, he immediately stood up in shock, shouting that it was impossible. The woman standing in front of him was none other than his beloved wife, Fujiwara no Chiko. Chien, Chiko. Looking at his smiling wife in front of him, Yi Fan quickly walked toward Fujiwara no Chiko. Yi Fan! Fujiwara no Chiko's eyes were red as she sobbed and threw herself at Yi Fan. The husband and wife hugged each other tightly. Chiko, you're alive. You're finally alive. Yi Fan hugged Fujiwara no Chiko tightly, tears streaming down his face. For so many days and nights, Yi Fan had hoped that his beloved wife would come back to life, and now his beloved wife was standing in front of him alive. How could this not make him inexplicably excited? You've suffered during this period of time. Fujiwara no Chiko also hugged Yi Fan tightly and sobbed. Yi Fan let go of Fujiwara no Chiko, then held her hand tightly and asked, "Tell me, who saved you?" It was Brother Kim. Fujiwara no Chiko wiped her tears and said, "Brother Kim?" Yi Fan was surprised and happy when he heard Fujiwara no Chiko's words. Brother Kim saved you? Chapter 368. It's Brother Kim. Brother Kim has finally made his move. Yi Fan thought excitedly. Chiko, what's going on? Yi Fan asked Fujiwara no Chiko. I only remember that I was looking for the cauldron at the Sisui River. How? 3 days ago, someone found you unconscious and Xiao Zhao on the surface of the Sisui River. Fujiwara no Chiko said to Yi Fan. 3 days ago? Yifan was truly shocked by Fujiwara no Chiko's words. In his opinion, the search for the cauldron at the Sisui River had only just happened. He did not expect that 3 days had already passed. That's right. 3 days ago, someone saved you and Xiao Zhao. Fujiwara no Chiko said to Yifan. Was it Brother Kim? Yifan asked. Fujiwara no Chiko shook her head. Wasn't Brother Kim? Yifan asked in confusion. Then who was it? Do you still remember the person who took away the 10,000 ghosts? Fujiwara no Chiko asked Yifan. Are you talking about the protector of the 10,000 Immortals Tower called Inpa? Yifan asked. That's him. Fujiwara no Chiko said. He was the one who sent you to the Lingyun cave. So it was him. Yifan suddenly realized. Since he was best friends with Bai Sheng in his previous life, he naturally knew the location of the Lingyun cave. When you returned from Dongying, Bai Sheng sent him back to the Great Ming Dynasty with you. Fujiwara no Chiko said to Yifan. What about you? Yifan asked Fujiwara no Chiko. How did Brother Kim rescue your 3 souls from the evil cauldron? I'm not sure about that. When I woke up, I was still in Pear Blossom Palace. Granny told me all this. Fujiwara no Chiko said to Yifan. What about Xiao Zhao? Yifan asked. How is it? It's fine now. It's in Pear Blossom Palace, said Fujiwara no Chiko. In Pear Blossom Palace? Yifan asked curiously. After that Soul sent me here, it sent Xiao Zhao back to Pear Blossom Palace? Fujiwara no Chiko nodded. Where's Brother Kim? Yifan asked Fujiwara no Chiko. Where is he now? He's already left, replied Fujiwara no Chiko. Left? Yifan frowned. Yes, Fujiwara no Chiko said as she hugged Yifan again and leaned her head on Yifan's chest. Looking at Fujiwara no Chiko in his arms, Yifan suddenly felt that something was strange. For some reason, he felt that things were a little strange. Since that Soul had sent him and Xiao Zhao here, why would it send Xiao Zhao back to Pear Blossom Palace from such a long distance away? Was it to let Jin Chan save Xiao Zhao? Then why didn't it directly send him and Xiao Zhao to Pear Blossom Palace? One must know that Sisui River was closer to Pear Blossom Palace than to Lingyun Cave. Why did it give up what was near and seek what was far away? Also, why did Brother Kim leave in a hurry without meeting him? Why did Brother Kim suddenly make a move? That day, Qing Shenzi had told him that if Brother Kim could make a move, he would have done it long ago and definitely wouldn't wait until now. What made him feel the most strange was that although he had encountered the golden light at the bottom of Sisui River, he had already used the spirit ball to protect his body. Other than that explosion, he didn't feel any external force. How did he lose consciousness? And he was unconscious for 3 days? One must know that his current cultivation was no longer the same as before. It was impossible for such a situation to happen. Cha! Just as Yifan was thinking hard, he suddenly felt a pain at the back of his neck, as if he had been scratched by something. Yifan subconsciously stretched out his hand to touch, but there was nothing. What's going on? Yifan felt a little strange. Why did he suddenly feel pain all of a sudden? Suddenly, an idea flashed across Yifan's mind. Wasn't the back of his neck where Xiao Zhao liked to lie the most? Yifan suddenly remembered what Qing Shenzi had told him. There were many illusion traps in the patterns of the 9 cauldrons. If he was not careful, he would fall into them. If he was lucky, he would go crazy, and if he was unlucky, he would die on the spot. Everything in front of him was an illusion. The pain at the back of his neck just now was Xiao Zhao reminding him. He should still be in Sisui River now. Yifan immediately came to his senses. You're not Chiko. Yifan, who had woken up, said coldly to Fujiwara no Chiko in his arms. Fujiwara no Chiko in his arms suddenly raised her head, and her face was full of surprise. You're my illusion. You're fake. Yifan stretched out his hand to push Fujiwara no Chiko away. It was clear that his beloved wife was an illusion projected in his mind by the 9 cauldrons. How did you know? Fujiwara no Chiko took a few steps back and asked calmly. A fake is a fake. It can't be real no matter how well you pretend. Yifan looked at her coldly and said, "Even if you can get past me, you won't be able to get past the enchantment barrier." Fujiwara no Chiko flicked her sleeves and instantly disappeared. Whoosh! The scene in front of Yifan began to distort, and he was instantly plunged into endless darkness. He returned to reality again. At this time, he was still suspended in the bottomless black hole with his eyes closed. Without the stimulation of spiritual energy, the bubble created by the water avoidance pearl had shrunk to 5 feet, and the firestone in his hand was instantly extinguished. Chapter 369. Ah! Yifan suddenly shouted, "Pa pa pa!" When Baihu saw that Yifan had woken up, it immediately licked Yifan's face happily. Just now, when it saw that Yifan had stopped moving, it stuck its head out to see what was going on. Who knew that it would have been better if it hadn't seen it? But when it saw it, it was so shocked that it couldn't believe it. At that time, Yifan's eyes were wide open and he was motionless. He was floating there quietly, not saying a word, not even blinking. Baihu saw that Yifan had fallen into an illusion at a glance. It was a fox, so it was naturally sensitive to illusions. Before its parents were killed, it had seen other foxes use illusions to confuse people. Those people all had the same expression after they fell into the illusion. It had heard from its parents that the easiest way to break the illusion was to give the person a sudden and strong stimulation, such as pouring a basin of cold water or slapping them. In a moment of desperation, the white fox stretched out its claws and scratched the back of Yifan's neck. Although it felt sorry for Yifan, it had to do this. The longer the illusion lasted, the harder it was for the person to wake up. It had to hurry. After being scratched by Baihu, Yifan's body suddenly trembled, but he didn't wake up. Baihu was anxious. It stretched out its sharp claws and scratched Yifan's neck directly. This time, it used its strength, and 3 deep bloody marks immediately appeared on the back of Yifan's neck. If this went on, it and Yifan would have to wait for death in this dark abyss. Coincidentally, Yifan had just regained his consciousness. Baihu's scratches made him cry out in pain. "Xiao Zhao, thanks to you this time," Yifan said to Baihu as he grimaced in pain. "Otherwise, I would have been finished." Baihu intimately rubbed her head against Yifan, and then went back into the hat to lick Yifan's wound. The pink tongue was soft and smooth, and Yifan's pain was immediately relieved. Bang! Under the stimulation of Yifan's spiritual power, the inferno stone in his hand blazed with fire again. Wong! The bubbles emitted by the water avoidance pearl filled up again. Yifan abruptly activated his movement technique and rapidly dove into the depths of the abyss. The illusion just now told him that the divine cauldron was in the abyss below. Today, no matter what, he had to obtain the patterns on the divine cauldron. Bang! After diving down for nearly 1,000 feet, the spirit pearl bubble seemed to have hit an invisible wall and stopped immediately. The sudden stop caused Baihu, who was licking Yifan's wound in the hat, to bump into the back of Yifan's head. She poked her head out of Yifan's hat to see what had happened. Yifan, who was in the spirit pearl bubble, paused and carefully examined it. There was nothing blocking his feet. It was as if there was nothing. It was obvious that they had encountered the invisible barrier of the divine cauldron. Since they had found the barrier, there was only one thing left to do: break the barrier and obtain the patterns on the divine cauldron. Yifan stood up and urged the spirit pearl bubble to slowly float up. After floating 100 feet above the barrier, Yifan stopped. Phew! Yifan took a deep breath and began to slowly mobilize his spiritual power. Wong! The overbearing spiritual power flowed quickly in Yifan's 8 extraordinary meridians. His body began to emit a dazzling 5-colored light. He didn't know if his earth-shattering heavens could break the barrier of the divine cauldron. As Yifan thought about it, he gathered nearly 70% of his spiritual power in his right palm. Wong! In the center of Yifan's right palm, a huge 5-colored ball of light instantly appeared. The ball of light was 10 feet in size and was pure white in color. It slowly rotated. Red, purple, white, gold, and green, 5 streaks of lightning intertwined like 5 long snakes, shuttling back and forth. The earth-shattering heavens spiritual power was equivalent to 7 times the strength when he was at his peak state. The dazzling 5-colored radiance illuminated the river water within a radius of nearly 1,000 feet around Yifan. The 5-colored radiance intertwined with one another, illuminating the entire area. Under the 5-colored light, Yifan, who was wearing a white jade mask, held the ball of light in his hand. His wide white robe fluttered in the wind. "Xiao Zhao hide," Yifan said to Baihu, who was curiously staring at the 5-color ball of light. He was the clearest about his own strength. This 70% spiritual power was no joke. Once it was released, its strength would shock the world. Ever since he started cultivating earth-shattering heavens, this was the first time he had gathered 70% of his strength. Baihu, who was on his shoulder, was also seeing Yifan's spiritual ball for the first time. She never would have thought that Yifan would be able to gather such a huge amount of spiritual power at this time. Furthermore, the spiritual ball was actually so beautiful. After hearing Yifan's words, Baihu retracted her gaze from the 5-color ball of light and returned to her hat. "Break!" Yifan shouted and suddenly pushed the huge ball of light in his hand downwards. Phew! The 5-color ball of light was like a huge meteor, dragging a long tail behind it as it rushed towards the divine cauldron barrier. Chapter 370. Boom! An earth-shattering force suddenly surged up for the barrier below. It suddenly counterattacked in the direction of Yifan. Yifan's pupils constricted in an instant. This barrier could actually reflect his power back. Whoosh! The huge rebounding force rushed in front of Yifan. The force was so strong, and the speed was so fast that even Yifan couldn't dodge. Buzz! Yifan panicked and immediately urged his spiritual energy to set up a 10-foot thick wall of spiritual energy in front of him. Bang! Although the wall of spiritual energy acted as a shield, Yifan's body was still pushed up by the huge force in an instant. Whoosh! On the surface of the Sisui River, a huge whirlpool suddenly appeared and spun at high speed. Boom! A towering pillar of water suddenly spun up into the sky, reaching a height of several hundred feet. At the top of the huge pillar of water, Yifan, who was supporting the wall of spiritual energy with one hand, was directly pushed up into the air by this force. This force was so strong that the towering pillar of water actually didn't fall from the sky. Huff! Yifan gasped for breath as he stabilized his body in the air. Using the opponent's power to attack the opponent, this divine cauldron barrier was indeed powerful. Looking at the towering pillar of water in the air that didn't fall from the sky, Yifan gritted his teeth and gathered his spiritual energy again. Buzz! A 3-foot large 5-colored light ball instantly appeared around Yifan's body. ZZZ, ZZZ, ZZ. On the ball of light, 5 thick bolts of 5-colored lightning coiled around like 5 huge dragons, swimming on it. This time, Yifan increased his spiritual energy to 80%. Buzz! A 5-colored light appeared in Yifan's eyes out of nowhere. Whoosh! The towering pillar of water, suspended in the air, gradually dissipated and began to fall heavily. Now's the time, Yifan thought to himself. Whoosh! Yifan brought along the 5-colored ball of light that was 10 meters in size as he instantly descended from the sky and charged towards the water pillar that was continuously falling down. He wanted to use the falling pillar of water to try again. Bang! The huge 5-colored ball of light rushed into the water column. The power of the water pillar's descent and the power of Yifan's movement technique combined to produce a speed as fast as lightning. Boom! Huge waves surged and water splashed everywhere. Yifan once again rushed into the Sisui River. This time, he wanted to use his spiritual energy ball to directly strike the divine cauldron barrier. The underwater scenery quickly flashed past his eyes. In an instant, Yi Fan had arrived less than 100 feet above the barrier. Mysterious sky, secret essences, earth-shattering heavens. Yi Fan roared as he pushed his movement technique to the extreme. Boom! Dazzling light splashed in all directions. Yi Fan, who was inside the ball of spiritual energy, collided with the divine cauldron barrier. Whoosh! A huge force once again shot out from the divine cauldron barrier. Boom! Yi Fan was once again sent flying by the powerful force. Bang! Yi Fan was blasted out of the water for the second time and sent flying into the air. Boom! The rebound force from the divine cauldron barrier sent the water column thousands of feet into the air. After the water column rushed up, the entire Sisui River dropped more than 3 feet. This time, the water column was too high. It directly scattered and collapsed as it fell, turning into water droplets that rained down. At the same time, there were also a large number of fish, prawns, and crabs. High up in the sky, Yi Fan floated there, gasping for breath. Twice, he had poured out his spirit energy, twice, and resisted his own rebound force. This made him feel somewhat tired. What made him feel even more disappointed was that 80% of his power was unable to do anything to the divine cauldron barrier. He had thought of using the cold dragon sword and the fire sword to break the barrier, but in the water, these two divine weapons could not unleash their true power. If the cold dragon sword was unsealed, the cold air it emitted would directly freeze the water of the Sisui River into a lump of ice that was as hard as steel, which would have the opposite effect. Using the fire sword would be even more impossible, as the cold river water would greatly weaken the power of the fire sword, wasting his spirit energy. Shinchunzi was right. If he wanted to break the divine cauldron barrier, he had to have the power of an immortal. There was only one path in front of him, which was to cultivate the third level of the mysterious sky secret technique, Phoenix Dance of the Nine Heavens. The power of the Phoenix Dance of the Nine Heavens was 10 times stronger than the heaven-breaking realm and 100 times stronger than the heaven-soaring realm. He should be able to break the divine cauldron barrier. However, even so, he had to consider the consequences of cultivating the Phoenix Dance of the Nine Heavens. At this time, there were 2 results of cultivating the Phoenix Dance of the Nine Heavens. The first result was to succeed in cultivating and successfully pass the tribulation, but the evil aura would also increase. The second result was to fail the tribulation and be destroyed by the heavenly lightning, turning into scorched earth. Yi Fan quietly floated in the air, not knowing what to do. Continue cultivating? That day in the extreme north, Zhenwu Great Emperor had directly told him the consequences of blindly cultivating. For words, death without a doubt. Not cultivating? In that case, even if he found the divine cauldron, he would still not be able to obtain the patterns on the divine cauldron. What should he do? Who could tell him what to do? Yi Fan thought in his heart. Looking at the still surging Sisui River below, Yi Fan, who was frowning, used his movement technique and flew towards the inn. Chapter 371. When Yi Fan returned to the inn, he was surprised to find that there were already many people walking back and forth on the street. These people were walking in a hurry, and they were all walking in the same direction. Everyone was carrying baskets and bags with all kinds of pastries and fruits, as well as a lot of incense, candles, and yellow paper. Men and women, young and old, it was very lively. What day is it today? Are they going to burn incense and offer offerings so early? As Yi Fan was thinking, he landed in a corner next to the inn when no one was paying attention. After landing on the ground, Yi Fan slowly walked into the inn. At this time, the waiter was whispering something to the manager at the counter. When he saw Yi Fan coming in, he was immediately surprised. Say, sir, the waiter asked Yi Fan in surprise. You just came back? He had been at the counter all night and didn't see Yi Fan go out at all. He didn't understand where Yi Fan went out from. Yes, Yi Fan answered as he walked in. Breakfast is almost ready. I'll send it to you in a while, the waiter said with a smile. What day is it today? Yifan asked casually as he went up the stairs. Why are there so many people? What? You don't know? The waiter's words were full of surprise. Yifan stopped in his tracks. He turned around on the stairs and looked at the waiter. Sir, you don't know? The waiter looked up and said to Yifan, something strange happened last night. Something strange? Yifan asked, what strange thing? It was so loud. Didn't you hear it outside? The waiter said in surprise, the river dragon king of the Sisui River showed his divinity. The dragon king showed his divinity? Yifan smiled bitterly in his heart. They thought that the noise he made was the river dragon king showing his divinity. Yes, the dragon king showed his divinity. The waiter said to Yifan, someone saw the dragon king flying up from the Sisui River. How do you know that it's the dragon king? Yifan asked, what are you talking about? The waiter said with a flattering smile, who else but the dragon king has such great ability? Last night's rain is proof. Rain? Yifan asked, did it rain last night? He remembered clearly that the moon was bright and the stars were sparse in Yikong last night. How could there be any rain? Are you kidding me? You don't even know that it's raining, the waiter said with a smile. That rain was made by the Dragon King. Many fish and shrimps fell from the sky. Now, the county magistrate's masters are preparing to report this good news to the imperial court. Yifan now understood. The rain that the waiter was talking about was the water column that shot up into the sky when he used his second move. The water column shot up several hundred feet and collapsed when it fell, drifting away with the wind. Naturally, it was just like rain. Those fish, shrimps, and crabs were brought out of the Sisui River by the water column. Those mediocre officials usually did not know how to care about the suffering of the people. But when it came to such matters, they were more proactive than anyone else. After reporting to the imperial court, they would definitely be promoted. Now the people have gone to the Sisui River to worship the Dragon King. Would you like to go and watch the fun? The waiter asked Yifan. Yifan did not know whether to laugh or cry at the waiter's words. If they knew that the water column that shot up into the sky was made by him, he wondered if they would worship him as the Dragon King. I don't like to join in the fun, Yifan said as he turned around, went up to the second floor, and came to the door of his room. However, when he opened the door, he was surprised to find Akatsuki wearing a crystal mask, leaning against the window and looking at him. You're back. Akatsuki asked Yifan. Why are you here? Yifan asked as he turned around and closed the door. I heard the noise in the Sisui River last night, so I came to find you. I didn't expect you to not be here, Akatsuki said as she stared into Yifan's eyes. I heard it last night, too. I didn't dare to disturb your rest, so I went to have a look myself. Yifan lied casually as he sat down in front of the table. He took an empty cup, picked up the teapot, and poured tea for himself. After a busy night, he was now hungry and thirsty. Really? Akatsuki asked. You went after hearing the noise? Yes, Yifan replied as he drank the tea. What were you doing before? Akatsuki asked. Sleeping, Yifan answered casually. Akatsuki did not speak, but turned to look at the bed. On the bed, the bedding was neatly folded, and there was no trace of sleeping at all. Obviously, Yifan was lying. When Yifan saw the bed, he was stunned at first. Then, he fell silent. It seemed that he was not good at lying, and now he was exposed. Yifan thought, if you want to act alone in the future, you can tell me directly. I won't pester you, Akatsuki said calmly, and directly walked out of Yifan's room. Yifan continued to drink the tea. Akatsuki was not as easy to deal with as he thought. She exposed his lie in a few words. After going back this time, Akatsuki would definitely report this matter to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Whatever, if Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked about this matter, he would directly say that he went to look for the cauldron. As for why he did not take Akatsuki with him, he would say that Akatsuki's movements were slow, and he was afraid of wasting time. If Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked about the water column, he would say that he encountered a river monster underwater and had a fight. That was it. It seemed that he had a talent for lying. Yifan thought as he drank the tea. Chapter 372. From the beginning to the end, Akatsuki did not speak. Even when Yi Fan told her to stand firm before flying, Akatsuki only nodded. Although she was wearing a mask, Yi Fan could still guess that under the mask, there must be an angry expression. Are you cold? Yi Fan was the first to break the silence. After all, he was the one who lied to Akatsuki first. This was the truth. I'm not cold, Akatsuki calmly replied. I went to the Sisui River last night to look for the cauldron. Yi Fan said. Since he had already thought about how to deal with Matsumoto Takeyoshi, there was naturally no need to hide it from Akatsuki. If you want to say it, then say it. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Akatsuki said to Yi Fan, but please don't lie to me. Akatsuki's words made Yi Fan instantly speechless. If this woman was being unreasonable, he would have plenty of ways to deal with her. However, every single word she said was the truth. She was straightforward and did not have the slightest bit of scheming. This made Yi Fan feel as if he had done something wrong. Well, I shouldn't have lied to you. I apologize. Yi Fan said to Akatsuki, I won't lie to you in the future. This sentence was watertight. Not lying to her and not telling her were not contradictory. As long as Yi Fan did not want to say it, he could not tell her. This was not the same as lying to her. Really, Akatsuki was indeed fooled. Yes, Yi Fan responded. Under the mask, Akatsuki pursed her lips into a smile. She did not know why, but Yi Fan's words made her feel very happy. You stayed in my room for half the night. Yi Fan asked Akatsuki. Yes. Akatsuki's words were no longer cold. Why don't you go back to your room to rest? Yi Fan asked again. I'm worried about you, Akatsuki blurted out. Yi Fan frowned. I'm worried that you'll mess up the mission. Akatsuki also felt that her words were a bit inappropriate, so she immediately explained. Yi Fan turned to look at Akatsuki. I was worried that your whereabouts would be discovered by those Taoists. Akatsuki explained again. That was how lying worked. One lie required several lies to complete it. When I arrived, those Taoists were no longer there, Yi Fan said as he turned around. Did you make that loud noise? Akatsuki asked. Yes. As Yi Fan answered, he regretted what he had just said. If Akatsuki asked him if he had found the divine cauldron, how should he answer? Tell her that the divine cauldron was at the Sisui River? What if she reported to Matsumoto Takeyoshi? Not telling her? He had just promised her that he would not lie to her. He couldn't possibly say that he didn't know. However, what surprised Yi Fan was that Akatsuki did not continue asking. She did not ask Yi Fan why he had made such a loud noise, nor did she ask Yi Fan if he had found the divine cauldron. Although Yi Fan felt that it was strange, since Akatsuki did not ask, he did not have to be troubled. Buffon-kun, can I ask you a question? After a long while, Akatsuki asked Yi Fan. Yi Fan looked at Akatsuki. What question? Matsumoto Takeyoshi gave us 3 days, and only 1 day has passed. Akatsuki said to Yi Fan, why don't you go and see your wife? Is it because it's inconvenient for me to follow you? If that's the case, I can wait for you somewhere else and not disturb you. You're thinking too much. This has nothing to do with you. Yi Fan turned his head and said, I want to go back and see her, but I can't. Why? Akatsuki asked. You know my current status very well. Yi Fan replied calmly. If I go back and someone asks me, I won't be able to answer. After hearing Yi Fan's words, Akatsuki fell silent. She could not continue asking. If she did, it would only pull the two of them further apart. It was very simple. She was one of Matsumoto Takeyoshi's people. She was here to help Matsumoto Takeyoshi. As for Yi Fan, although he was on the same boat as Matsumoto Takeyoshi, he and Matsumoto Takeyoshi were on opposite sides. They were just using each other. They were fundamentally different. Although she and Yi Fan were partners, they were on opposite sides. Is that Baihu of yours your pet? I see that it's inseparable from you everywhere. Akatsuki changed the topic. Woo! Akatsuki's words made Baihu in Yi Fan's hat bare its teeth and growl. She's my little sister, not my pet. Yi Fan corrected Akatsuki's words. Little sister? Akatsuki's words revealed a hint of surprise. Yi Fan told Akatsuki about Inchan Daxiong's sneak attack on him, how he took away his beloved wife's soul, and how Xiao Zhao sacrificed herself and used her life score to save him. Yi Fan tried his best to calmly tell the story, but to Akatsuki, it was simply shocking. Bastard! Akatsuki scolded after hearing Yi Fan's words. It was very obvious that she was scolding Inchandation. Xiao Zhao is my little sister. In my heart, no one can replace her position. Yi Fan recalled the scene at that time, and his eyes turned red. Baihu stuck its head out from Yi Fan's hat and intimately rubbed its head against Yi Fan's cheek. Yi Fan reached out his hand and stroked Baihu's head. Looking at the man and fox in front of her, Akatsuki's heart suddenly filled with an indescribable feeling. Chapter 373. Although that Fujiwara no Chiko's soul wasn't complete, and she couldn't wake up, she had such a good husband and such a good sister. She was simply the happiest woman in the world. For some reason, Akatsuki suddenly started to envy Fujiwara no Chiko. If she had such a good husband, she would be willing to be completely annihilated, let alone be separated from her soul, and be in a coma. Apart from that, she also started to feel sorry for Yi Fan. The man in front of her had too many burdens on his shoulders. Although she didn't know what kind of suffering Yi Fan had gone through, she could tell from Yi Fan's head of silver hair that this man had gone through too many hardships because of love. "You must love your wife very much," Akatsuki said. "If I could do it all over again, I wouldn't marry her." Yi Fan's voice started to tremble slightly. "She has suffered too much with me. Instead of suffering with me, she might as well find a good man and marry him. The man plows and the woman weaves, eating simple meals, working at sunrise and resting at sunset. No matter what, it's better than the life she's leading now. Now, she's neither alive nor dead. Even her soul isn't complete." Phew! Yi Fan took a deep breath and tried his best to hold back his tears. What a loving and righteous man. Looking at the man in front of her, Akatsuki could no longer control her emotions. 2 drops of crystal-clear tears fell from the corners of her eyes. It was great love. This is great love. For the sake of loving the other person, he was willing to leave the other person. "All right, let's not talk about this." Yi Fan steadied his emotions and said, "I've made a fool of myself in front of Miss You. Do you think I would laugh?" Akatsuki said with reddened eyes. Yi Fan didn't say a word. There's a famous saying in the Central Plains, "Sincerity can move metal and stone." Akatsuki said to Yi Fan, "You and your wife will definitely reunite. You definitely will." After hearing this, Yi Fan turned his head to look at Akatsuki, but Akatsuki immediately turned her head away. She did not want Yi Fan to know that she was crying. "Thank you," Yi Fan said. Akatsuki did not answer. The two of them stopped talking and focused on their journey. 2 hours later, the two of them arrived above the eastern sea. At this moment, strong winds were blowing on the surface of the sea, and huge waves were surging to the sky. The sky was densely covered with dark clouds, and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. A storm was coming. Yu Hongji's body began to tremble as she looked at the rolling black clouds beneath her feet and listened to the roaring thunder in her ears, coupled with the lightning that kept splitting the clouds apart. She had never felt the might of lightning at such a close distance before. "Are you scared?" Yi Fan asked Akatsuki. Akatsuki nodded her head like a chick pecking at rice. After all, she was still a woman. "Grab my arm. I'll bring you down," Yi Fan said. At this moment, the sky was covered with dark clouds. If they wanted to find a place without dark clouds to land, they would have to walk at least a few hundred miles. Yi Fan did not want to go through so much trouble. With his current cultivation, it was not difficult to quickly pass through the dark clouds. "Pa!" As soon as Yi Fan's voice fell, Akatsuki tightly held onto Yi Fan's arm. On the ground, she could be said to be a top expert. However, in the sky, especially above the dark clouds with lightning flashing and thunder rumbling, she was just an ordinary woman. "Hold on tight, we're going down," Yi Fan said as he began to circulate his spiritual power. Buzz! A white protective light sphere of 10 feet in size instantly wrapped around the two of them. Akatsuki opened her eyes wide and looked at the dazzling protective light sphere in disbelief. She knew that Yi Fan was powerful, but she did not think that his spiritual power cultivation could reach such a level. If she knew that Yi Fan was using less than 10% of his spiritual power, she would be so shocked that her jaw would drop. Kacha! A huge lightning bolt instantly split open the clouds under their feet. Shwa! As soon as the lightning appeared, Yi Fan immediately used his movement technique and turned into a white light rushing towards the lightning in the dark clouds. Ah! Akatsuki shouted while tightly holding onto Yi Fan's arm. In her view, Yi Fan's speed was too fast. If not for her cultivation, her hand would have already been pulled away by Yi Fan's movement technique. The moment they fell, Akatsuki closed her eyes. She did not understand why Yi Fan did not go down from the other clouds, but instead directly rushed towards the lightning. Did he not want to live? Shwa! Just as she was thinking about this question, Yi Fan's figure instantly broke through the dark clouds and descended from the sky at high speed. Yi Fan's action of rushing towards the lightning was completely correct. The reason was very simple. Lightning would not pass through the same place at the same time. After breaking through the clouds, Yi Fan withdrew his protective light sphere and reduced his speed at the same time. Akatsuki opened her eyes. She saw that under the illumination of several lightning bolts, Yi Fan's white robe fluttered in the wind. He was like a peerless hero descending from the sky. Akatsuki's heart began to float. Any woman would be intoxicated by this scene in front of her. They're back. On the deck of the warship, a white-robed man with long hair and fluttering clothes raised his head to look at Yi Fan's duo breaking through the clouds. He spoke to Matsumoto Takeyoshi, who was standing in front of him. At this moment, Matsumoto Takeyoshi was standing at the side of the warship. He was holding a golden monocular to observe the waves on the sea. When he heard the white-robed man's words, he immediately looked up into the sky. He saw that below the dark clouds, two white-robed men were slowly descending towards them. Matsumoto Takeyoshi immediately used his monocular to aim at the two people in the sky. "Is that Yi Fan?" Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked as he looked at the two through the monocular. Even though Yi Fan and Akatsuki were both wearing masks, Matsumoto Takeyoshi still recognized them. Chapter 374. It's them, the man in white said. I gave them 3 days, but I didn't expect them to come back so soon. Matsumoto Takeyoshi smiled and handed the binoculars to a ninja beside him. With his current agility, this is already very slow. The man in white said, "Let's go in," Matsumoto Takeyoshi said and turned toward the cabin. The man in white looked up at the two people in the air, then turned around and followed Matsumoto Takeyoshi into the main cabin. "We're here." In the air, Yi Fan said to Akatsuki. The implication was that Akatsuki should let go of his arm. Akatsuki's face turned red and let go of Yi Fan's arm. If it weren't for the crystal mask, her face would be similar to the color of the mask, red. In the blink of an eye, the two figures landed on the deck of the warship. After landing, the two went directly to Matsumoto Takeyoshi's main cabin. At this time, the wind was blowing and the waves were surging. In addition to the two of them on the deck, there were only 2 ninjas in front of Matsumoto Takeyoshi's cabin door. Swish! As soon as the two arrived at the door of the main cabin, the 2 ninjas pulled out half of their swords. "Who are you?" one of the ninjas asked. The 2 people in front of them were covered from head to toe, wearing masks so they couldn't recognize who they were. Their duty was to protect Matsumoto Takeyoshi, so naturally, they couldn't easily let people in. Yi Fan reached out and slowly took off the white jade mask, looking at them expressionlessly. "We're here to see Mr. Matsumoto," Akatsuki said. Mr. Yi Mitsuki-san." When the 2 ninjas saw Yi Fan and Akatsuki, they immediately put their swords back into their scabbards, clasped their arms, and bowed to salute the 2 people. Ever since Akatsuki came to the warship, all the ninjas remembered her voice. After all, Akatsuki was wearing a veil. Needless to say, Yi Fan was even more terrifying than the Grim Reaper in the hearts of ninjas. Whoosh! After the two ninjas saluted them, they immediately opened the hatch and invited them in. Yi Fan placed the white jade mask into his bosom and stepped inside. Akatsuki followed closely behind. Voila! The cabin door closed again. Unlike the scene outside, where the winds were howling and the waves were surging, the main cabin was brightly lit, warm, and comfortable, as if it was a completely different world. Ha ha! Yi Fan-kun, miss you. I didn't expect you'd be back so soon. Come, take a seat. Try the tea I brewed. Matsumoto Takeyoshi, who was sitting at the head of the table, beckoned Yi Fan and Akatsuki over. Beside him was a small, exquisite stove with an exquisite iron kettle on it. The flames on the stove danced, and the iron kettle was filled with steam. The two slowly walked in front of Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Greetings, Mr. Matsumoto. Akatsuki bowed to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Yi Fan didn't stand on ceremony. He directly sat to Matsumoto Takeyoshi's left, and then took off the hat on his head, revealing his silver hair. Whoosh! Baihu jumped out of the hat and into Yi Fan's arms. No need, no need. Miss you, please take a seat. Matsumoto Takeyoshi smiled. He didn't mind Yi Fan's rudeness. In fact, he was happy to see him do so. The reason was simple. Yi Fan's actions represented that everything was normal. If one day Yi Fan suddenly became polite to him, it would prove that something was wrong. Yes, Akatsuki said as she sat to Matsumoto Takeyoshi's right, across the table from Yi Fan. How was it? Did you complete the mission? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked with a smile as he took out 3 white porcelain cups from the tea tray on the table. Yes. Akatsuki nodded and answered. Oh, tell me about it. Matsumoto Takeyoshi said as he picked up the bamboo tea container, reached out to open it, and then used a bamboo spoon to put tea leaves into the 3 cups. When we got there, we happened to meet a group of Taoists who were setting up the 1,000 Ghosts Array. Akatsuki said as she told Matsumoto Takeyoshi what happened at Sisui River that night. The 1,000 ghosts were taken away. Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked with a frown after listening to Akatsuki's report. Yes, Akatsuki replied. Who was the one who took away the 1,000 ghosts? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked again. We were above the clouds at that time, so we couldn't hear their conversation. Akatsuki said. Yi Fan-kun, did you hear it? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked as he turned his head towards Yi Fan. I heard it. Yi Fan replied. Who was it? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked. It was someone from the 10,000 Immortals Tower. Yi Fan answered truthfully. Other than the fact that he could not let Matsumoto Takeyoshi know that he had discovered the Divine Cauldron, there was no need to lie to Matsumoto Takeyoshi about anything else. Then again, he couldn't lie to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Who knew if there were any of Matsumoto Takeyoshi's men among those Taoists? If Matsumoto Takeyoshi knew that he was lying to him, it would be difficult to deal with things in the future. 10,000 Immortals Tower. Matsumoto Takeyoshi frowned. Bai Sheng. It's not Bai Sheng. Yi Fan replied. It's one of his protectors, called Yin Pe. Yin Yang Protector, Yin Pe Yang Soul. Matsumoto Takeyoshi said with a solemn expression. Only now did Yi Fan know that there were 2 protectors under Bai Sheng. Which Taoist did Impa fight with? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked Yi Fan. It seems to be a sect master, surnamed Lu. Yi Fan deliberately said. I heard Impa call him Sect Master Lu. Mao Mountain Sect Master Lu Yuan Shan. Matsumoto Takeyoshi said as he took the iron kettle from the stove and poured water into the 3 porcelain cups. The steam rose and the fragrance of the tea filled the air. What did you do after the 10,000 ghosts took it away? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked without raising his head as he poured the tea. Yi Fan did not answer. Instead, he directly picked up the teacup and blew on it. He could not speak now. There were some things that he could take the initiative to say, and some things that he could not take the initiative to say. Matsumoto Takeyoshi had to let Akatsuki answer this question first, and then he would act according to the situation. After the 10,000 ghosts took it away, we returned to the inn. Akatsuki calmly replied. And then, Matsumoto Takeyoshi put down the kettle and asked casually. Chapter 375. The word then could explain a lot of things. This Matsumoto Takeshi was indeed a wily old fox. He was testing them. Then we left this morning. Akatsuki calmly replied. Akatsuki's reply shocked Yi Fan. It was clear that Akatsuki didn't tell Matsumoto Takeyoshi that Yi Fan went to the Sisui River in the middle of the night to search for the cauldron. Why? Why would she do that? Why would she help him hide this matter? Did Matsumoto Takeyoshi deliberately arrange for her to say this in advance? To confuse him and test him? Or did his story move Akatsuki? Did it arouse her sympathy? Yi Fan had a feeling that Matsumoto Takeyoshi seemed to have already guessed that he was searching for the cauldron. As for whether Akatsuki was following Matsumoto Takeyoshi's instructions to confuse him and test him, he didn't know. What to do? Yi Fan sipped his tea as if nothing had happened as he quickly tried to come up with a plan. Yi Fan-kun, is that so? Matsumoto Takeyoshi looked at Yi Fan with a smile. No. Yi Fan spat out 2 words. These 2 words made Akatsuki's heart tremble. She instinctively raised her head to look at Yi Fan. It wasn't just her. Matsumoto Takeyoshi and the white-clothed man standing behind him all had a change in expression. The atmosphere in the cabin immediately became heavy. There was absolute silence. Only the sound of the wind and wave could be heard from outside the ship. After returning to the inn, I quietly went out by myself. Yi Fan played it down. Miss you doesn't know. He raised his head to look at Akatsuki as he spoke. Akatsuki's beautiful eyes widened. She didn't understand why Yi Fan wanted to expose her. You going out alone? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked calmly. What for? Go to the Sisui River to find the cauldron. Yi Fan said. His words shocked everyone. Matsumoto Takeyoshi, the man in white, and Akatsuki were all shocked. Akatsuki did not expect Yi Fan to tell the truth. That night, when she heard the loud noise coming from the direction of the Sisui River, she felt something was wrong. She immediately went to Yi Fan's room to find him. When she found that Yi Fan's room was empty and the windows were wide open, she understood everything. Yi Fan obviously went to the Sisui River alone and didn't want to take him with him. There was no need to guess. There was only one purpose for him to go to the Sisui River, which was to find the cauldron. As for why he didn't take her with him, she didn't know. But she was sure that Yi Fan didn't do this because he thought she was troublesome. The reason was very simple. Yi Fan had reached an agreement with Matsumoto Takeyoshi to help him find the cauldron in exchange for Fujiwara no Chiko's 3 souls. Yi Fan took her to find the cauldron openly. It was normal. There was no need to hide it from her. He must have his own reasons for doing so. Akatsuki knew that he didn't hide it from her, but from Matsumoto Takeyoshi. When Yi Fan took the initiative to tell her that he wouldn't find the cauldron that night, she didn't ask Yi Fan why he didn't take her with him. She also didn't ask him if he found the sacred cauldron. It wasn't that she didn't want to know, but that she couldn't know. Or it could be said that she didn't want to make things difficult for Yi Fan. When she asked, Yi Fan would tell her the result, and she had the responsibility to report this matter to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Not telling lies was one of her principles. In order to not make things difficult for Yi Fan, and in order to not go against her principles, she chose not to ask. This way, everyone was at peace. But when Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked her what she did after returning to the inn, she didn't know why, but she chose to lie. Since she was young, this was the first time she lied. It was also the first time she lied for a man. She didn't know the specific reason. However, no matter how much she thought about it, she would never have thought that Yi Fan would expose her and tell her the truth. After hearing Yi Fan's words, Matsumoto Takeyoshi's eyes lit up and he asked, Did you find it? No. Yi Fan shook his head and began to lie. No. Matsumoto Takeyoshi frowned. I've searched all the rivers within a few hundred miles, but I still can't find it. Yi Fan pretended to be worried. Matsumoto Takeyoshi stared at Yi Fan, as if to see if he was lying. He had seen countless people, so he could tell if the other party was lying or not. Did Miss you know when you left? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked Yifan. Akatsuki's heart immediately jumped to her throat. No one knew when I left, including Miss Yu. Yifan said as he glanced at Akatsuki. Yu Hongji's heart was finally relieved. Yifan continued to drink his tea. From the beginning to the end, other than discovering the divine cauldron, everything he said was the truth. This method could be said to be foolproof. Even if Akatsuki was following Matsumoto Takeyoshi's instructions to deliberately mislead the public, Matsumoto Takeyoshi could not find any loopholes. Because Akatsuki did not know if she had found the divine cauldron. No matter what, Yifan's words could be said to be flawless. Since you're going to find the cauldron, why don't you bring Miss Yu with you? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked the question that Akatsuki had always wanted to ask, but did not. It's not that I don't want to bring her, but I can't, Yifan said as he took a sip of tea. Why? Matsumoto Takeyoshi looked at Yifan and asked. There are two reasons. Yifan put down his teacup and said slowly, First, if I want to find the cauldron, I have to go to the bottom of the Sishui River. I'm not good at swimming, so it would be very inconvenient to bring Miss Yu along. Matsumoto Takeyoshi nodded. The water was not as deep as on land, and Akatsuki's cultivation was not as good as Yifan's, so it would be inconvenient for Yifan to bring her along. Chapter 376. I did think so at first, but later I felt that it was inappropriate, Yifan said. Inappropriate? Matsumoto Takeyoshi looked doubtful. What's inappropriate? If I leave Miss Yu on the shore, what if she encounters danger? Yifan glanced at Akatsuki as he spoke. That Insol's movements are ghostly, and her cultivation is extremely high. In addition, I wasn't sure if those Taoist priests had left at that time. If Miss Yu really fought with them, I wouldn't know at all from the bottom of the Sisui River. Matsumoto Takeyoshi frowned and fell into deep thought. He didn't tell Yifan that Lu Yuanshan and Xuanji were on his side. Yifan's explanation was reasonable. Akatsuki looked at Yifan quietly and didn't say a word. She couldn't tell whether Yifan was telling the truth or not. After all, Yifan was explaining to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. However, she was sure of one thing. Yifan didn't want to harm her. If he wanted to harm her, he would have directly told Matsumoto Takeyoshi that she knew but didn't report it. Miss Yu, you should thank Yifan, Matsumoto Takeyoshi said to Akatsuki with a smile. He's taking care of you. At this time, Matsumoto Takeyoshi still didn't forget to matchmake the two of them. Thank you, Yifan. Akatsuki nodded to Yifan. Miss Yu is too polite, Yifan said calmly. I've been hiding this matter from Miss Yu. I hope Miss Yu won't take it to heart. Akatsuki nodded again. You two are partners. In the future, you should interact more and trust each other, Matsumoto Takeyoshi said with a smile. That way, you'll be able to cooperate well and complete tasks better. Yes, Akatsuki replied. Yifan picked up his teacup and sipped his tea quietly. The two of you have completed the task well. Yifan's performance is even more remarkable. Matsumoto Takeyoshi smiled and said to the two of them, You must be tired after such a long journey. Go back and rest. When the others return, I will reward you according to your contributions. Thank you, Mr. Songmoto. Akatsuki stood up and nodded to Matsumoto Takeyoshi before she turned and walked out of the cabin door. Yifan also stood up and followed Yu Hongji out the door. Their relationship seems to be progressing well, Matsumoto Takeyoshi said with a smile after the two of them left. What do you mean, sir? The man in white asked. An exquisite mask and a gorgeous robe. Aren't these enough to tell you the truth? Matsumoto Takeyoshi smiled. That mask is definitely not an ordinary item. How can their relationship be bad if they can give something like that to each other? The man in white frowned. Just as Matsumoto Takeyoshi said, he was a blank slate when it came to matters between men and women. Do you think what he said just now is true? Matsumoto Takeyoshi turned and asked the man in white. For now, I can't hear any loopholes, the man in white said. But no loopholes and not being true are two completely different things. Send someone to contact Xuanji and verify whether Yifan is telling the truth. Also, Instruct the shadow man lurking in Pengcheng to find out whether he went out alone or with someone else that night. Matsumoto Takeyoshi said to the man in white behind him as he sipped his tea. Whoosh! Outside the cabin, the wind was howling and the rain was pouring down. Yi-Fan and Akatsuki walked side by side toward Akatsuki's birth cabin. 3 feet above their heads, a transparent, semicircular bubble blocked the downpour of rainwater. It was Yi-Fan's water-repellent pearl that was working. Why don't you go back to your ship? Akatsuki asked. The rain is too heavy. I'll send you back, Yi-Fan said. Akatsuki bit her lower lip and didn't say anything. After a while, the two arrived in front of Akatsuki's birth cabin. I'm here. Under the roof of the sleeping cabin, Yu Hongji turned around and looked at Yi-Fan. Have a good rest. I'm leaving, Yi-Fan said as he turned around and prepared to leave. Bu Fan-kun, Akatsuki called Yi-Fan from behind. Yi-Fan stopped and turned around to look at Akatsuki. Why did you do that just now? Akatsuki mustered up her courage to ask Yi-Fan. What about you? Yi-Fan didn't answer Akatsuki's question. Instead, he asked directly, why did you do that? Akatsuki was stunned. She couldn't answer Yi-Fan's question because she didn't know why she did that. You're new to the cloud path. You might have caught some cold. It's best to take a hot bath and drink a bowl of ginger soup, Yi-Fan said as he turned around. Whoosh! He tapped the deck of the warship with the tip of his toe and quickly swept toward the other ship behind the warship. Under the eaves, Akatsuki stood there quietly and looked at Yi-Fan's back in a daze. After returning to his cabin, Yi-Fan took off his hat and white robe and went straight to the bedroom on the second floor. Baihu jumped down from Yi-Fan's shoulder and ran in front of Yi-Fan. Phew! Yi-Fan laid down heavily on the wooden plank and let out a long breath. This trip could be described with 4 words: toiling for nothing. Even though he found the location of the divine cauldron, he couldn't break its powerful enchantment. Even though he was mentally prepared when he returned from Xiang Temple, he still felt an inexplicable sense of loss when he couldn't get close to the divine cauldron. Chapter 377. Immortals must have immortal powers, but those who have immortal powers might not be immortals. Qing Chenzi's words echoed in Yi-Fan's ears again. He didn't know if his phoenix dance of the 9 heavens was considered immortal powers, and if it could open the divine cauldron's enchantment. But no matter what, he couldn't impulsively cultivate the phoenix dance of the 9 heavens now. Zhenwu Great Emperor's words wouldn't be false. Cultivating the phoenix dance of the 9 heavens now was no different from courting death. What he needed to do now was to find the location of the 9 cauldrons and think of other ways to increase his strength. These 2 things couldn't be rushed. He decided that after the rain passed, he would go find 2 people. One was the swimming hall's headmaster, Cui Ziwen, and the other was Yi Ming, who was on the Eagle Worry Peak. Apart from immortals, these 2 were definitely among the experts who possessed the power of immortals. Yi-Fan had a deep impression of the 2 of them because of their high cultivation and powerful strength. Yi Ming's casual move had beaten Kuju Junichiro, who had cultivated for over 1,000 years, to the point that he couldn't even fight back. Cui Ziwen had used a single gold coin to send him, who was wearing a flawless robe, flying. He had only used his bare hands to catch the cold dragon sword that had just been unsealed. If these 2 didn't have immortal powers, Yi-Fan wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. There was only one reason why Yi-Fan wanted to find the 2 of them. He wanted them to give him some pointers. Maybe they could find a way to increase his strength. Actually, in his eyes, these 2 weren't the only experts with immortal powers. Xiang Temple's Qing Chenzi and Pear Blossom Palace's Tian Kanzi were also top-notch experts. But to him, Cui Ziwen and Yi Ming were more suitable for him. Although Qing Chenzi and Tian Kanzi were powerful, one of them cultivated orthodox Tao techniques while the other cultivated ancient witchcraft. These 2 were too difficult for him. Last time, Cui Ziwen had given him some pointers, and he had benefited a lot from it. This time, he was prepared to take the initiative to ask for guidance. As for the Night Ancestor, Yi Ming, who was at the top of the Hawk's Sorrow Peak, he had to humbly consult him. Yi Ming was the first in history to be able to extract his own demonic nature for his use. Now that his evil qi was surging, every time his strength increased, he would feel the evil qi in his body become restless. Every time he fought with someone, he had to try his best to restrain his strong, killing intent and bloodthirsty impulse. To be honest, he was sometimes afraid of himself. Murderous intent, endless murderous intent. This murderous intent made him shudder. Ever since he had obtained his cultivation, more than one person had reminded him of this matter. If he could learn how to restrain his demonic nature from Yi Ming, not only would he be able to obtain the same kind of power as him, he would also be able to completely solve the problem of his demonic energy. It could be said that he was killing two birds with one stone. Let's do that. Yi Fan made up his mind. At this time, Baihu trotted to Yi Fan's side, holding the fruit basket that the little Taoist boy had given it last time in its mouth. Yi Fan smiled. He first patted Baihu's head, then took an apple from the basket and took a bite. Baihu also took an apple from the basket and then lay down beside Yi Fan, pressing down on the apple with its paws and eating it in big bites. The only one who could accompany him now was Xiao Zhao. Just like that, the man and the fox listened to the downpour outside while eating fruits and resting. Inside the cabin of the battleship, steam was rising and rolling. The naked Akatsuki was half lying in the large wooden tub, staring blankly at the exquisite crystal mask in her hand. The crystal mask was overflowing with light and was dazzling, reflecting Akatsuki's beautiful face like a mirror. She stretched out her pink arm from the water and gently stroked the blood-red crystal mask. The crystal mask in her hand quietly looked at Akatsuki. Its eyes were cold and empty, just like Yi Fan's handsome and cold face. Although this mission only lasted for a day, it was the first time she had received a beautiful dress and a crystal mask from the opposite sex. It was the first time she had been hugged by the opposite sex, the first time she had been saved by the opposite sex, the first time she had felt her heart beating wildly, and even the first time someone had cared about her not to catch a cold. In the steaming steam, Akatsuki slowly put the mask in her hand on her face again, then leaned back, completely immersing herself in the bathtub sprinkled with flower petals. The torrential rain continued to pour until the sky turned dark before gradually slowing down. Pitter-patter-patter. The damp air made people feel very uncomfortable. Yi Fan found a stove from the bottom of the ship and lit it up. He had a cultivation base, so he didn't need this kind of thing. But Xiao Zhao was different. She had a fox body now, so this cold and damp weather would make her sick. As the blazing fire gradually lit up, the cabin suddenly became warm. The white fox obediently crouched beside the stove and warmed itself comfortably. Yi Fan quietly lay on the wooden floor with his hands on the pillow, listening to the rustling rain outside the ship and recalling what Qing Chenzi had said to him. At that time, Qing Chenzi had told him that among the 9 divine cauldrons, there were 5 yang and 4 yin, and the materials were completely different. 5 of them were made with the yang method and were made with the male gold, which was the yang cauldron. 4 of them were made with the female gold, which was the yin cauldron. The yin cauldron had strong yin energy, while the yang cauldron had blazing yang energy. In order to break the 2 boundaries of yin and yang, one had to use yin to break yin and yang to break yang. In other words, one needed the power of yin and yang. I wonder if the divine cauldron, the Sisui River, is a yin cauldron or a yang cauldron, Yi Fan thought. Using yin to break yin, using yang to break yang. He repeatedly pondered over these words in his heart. Chapter 378. Right now, not only did he need to increase his strength, he also needed the power of extreme yin. Knock, knock, knock. Yi Fan was thinking when there was a knock on the door. Yi Fan frowned when he heard it. It was Akatsuki. He could tell from the rhythm of her breathing. What is she doing here so late at night? Yi Fan thought as he got up. Baihu saw Yi Fan get up and immediately stood up as well. Keep the fire warm, it's fine, Yi Fan said to Baihu as he walked downstairs. The white fox crouched down again. Crash! Yifan came to the cabin door on the first floor and reached out to slide the door open. Outside the cabin door, Akatsuki was wearing a red dress with a red veil covering her face. She held a red umbrella in her left hand and a food box in her right hand. At this time, her black hair was hanging down, her beautiful eyes were clear, her skin was creamy, and her figure was exquisite. Under the contrast of her red robe, she was exceptionally beautiful. "Miss you," Yifan calmly said. While speaking, Yifan did not look at Akatsuki's eyes. Without the cover of the mask, Akatsuki's eyes were clearly visible. "I have some fishbone soup that I haven't finished yet. I saw that the lights in your cabin were on, so I came over to give you some," Yu Hongji said as she handed the food box in her hand to Yifan. Yifan frowned and reached out to take the food box. "Thank you, miss you," Yifan said. "There are also some snacks inside. I prepared them for Xiao Zhao. I don't know if she likes them," Akatsuki said to Yifan. "You are too polite. I thank you on behalf of Xiao Zhao," Yifan said. Yifan's meaning was clear. He did not want to let Akatsuki in. A man and a woman alone in a room in the middle of the night. If word got out, it would not be good. "Where's Xiao Zhao? Is it asleep?" Akatsuki asked. "He just fell asleep," Yifan said. He couldn't give Akatsuki a chance to enter the house. In fact, Baihu was just lying there to warm herself by the fire. When it came to Yifan, she had just fallen asleep. As soon as Yifan finished speaking, Baihu leaped onto Yifan's shoulder. When it saw that Yifan hadn't come back for a long time, it was worried about Yifan, so it ran down the stairs. Baihu's appearance made Yifan feel extremely awkward. "Looks like I woke it up." Akatsuki looked at Baihu on his shoulder and said, "It's cold outside. Miss you, please come in," Yifan said to Akatsuki in a flash. At this time, he had no other choice but to invite Akatsuki in. Akatsuki nodded. She closed her red umbrella, took off her wooden clogs, and slowly walked into the cabin. "Please come upstairs," Yifan said to Akatsuki as he led the way in front of the stairs. During this time, Yifan reached out his hand and lightly scratched Baihu's nose. If Baihu didn't appear, Akatsuki would have already gone back. Baihu had an innocent face. The two of them came to the cabin on the second floor one after the other and sat on the floor next to the stove. "Try my cooking while it's hot," Akatsuki said. Yifan nodded and reached out to open the lid of the food box. The fragrance of fish filled the air. Inside the food box, there were 2 plates of sushi, 2 plates of pastries, 2 large bowls of fish soup, and a set of chopsticks. The sushi was exquisite, the pastries were mellow, and the fish soup was rich. It was obvious that Akatsuki had spent a lot of effort on this. "Xiao Zhao." Yifan picked up a piece of pastry and put it in front of Baihu's mouth. Baihu opened her mouth and started eating. Japanese pastries were exquisite, and each piece wasn't big. After Baihu finished eating, she licked her lips and looked up at Yifan, as if she hadn't had enough. It was obvious that Akatsuki's cooking was much better than the ninja's. "Here, they're all for you." Yifan saw that Baihu liked it and immediately put 2 plates of pastries in front of her. Baihu lowered her head and started eating again. Yifan smiled as he gently stroked Baihu. Ever since she returned, other than fruits, Baihu hadn't eaten much. Firstly, it wasn't used to eating Japanese food. Secondly, it had been a vegetarian for many years, so it couldn't eat fish or meat at all. Furthermore, the waves at sea were strong, and the ship was often shaking, so it didn't have much of an appetite to eat. Yifan was delighted when he saw how much of an appetite it had now. Looking at the sunny smile on Yifan's face, Akatsuki, who was sitting opposite him, couldn't help but sigh. The Yifan in front of her was like a completely different person from the Yifan who killed Inchan Dashung back then. One was cold and ruthless, while the other was full of smiles like a spring breeze. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed that there could be such contradictory people in the world. "I didn't expect it to like the food. I made so much." Akatsuki looked at Baihu, who was eating with her head lowered, and said, "Yeah." Yifan looked down at Baihu, who was eating more and more happily, and said with a smile, "I didn't expect it either. Since it likes to eat, I'll make more and send it over in the future." Akatsuki said, After hearing this, Yifan raised his head and looked at Akatsuki. Akatsuki also looked away from Baihu and turned to Yifan. Yifan saw a trace of tenderness in Akatsuki's beautiful eyes. Akatsuki, on the other hand, felt a trace of warmth in Yifan's eyes. Chapter 379. Xiao Zhao, don't just eat. Here, have some fish soup, Akatsuki said as she took out a big bowl of fish soup and put it in front of Baihu. Baihu, who was eating with its head down, stopped eating. It first looked up at Akatsuki, then looked down at the fish soup in front of it and shook its head. It doesn't like it? Akatsuki asked Yifan in confusion. I forgot to tell you. Xiao Zhao has been a vegetarian for many years. She has already stopped eating meat, Yifan said to Akatsuki. Sorry, I was rude. Akatsuki immediately nodded and apologized to Xiao Zhao after hearing Yifan's words. Baihu shook its head at Akatsuki again, then lowered its head to eat the pastries. It's not your fault that you didn't know, Yifan said as he picked up the fish soup in front of Baihu and took a sip. No matter what, the other party meant well, so he had to give it a try. Who would have thought that it would have been better if he didn't drink it? After drinking it, Yifan frowned slightly. The taste of the fish soup was almost exactly the same as the one made by his wife, Fujiwara no Chiko. Maybe the fish soup made in Japan tastes like this, Yifan thought. What's wrong? Is it not good? Akatsuki asked nervously when she saw Yifan frown. No. Yifan put down the fish soup and said to Akatsuki, the fish soup is delicious. Then why are you frowning? Akatsuki asked Yifan. I miss my wife. Yifan said honestly, the fish soup you make tastes about the same as the fish soup she makes. Really? Akatsuki blushed when she heard this. It's just that she's always been clumsy when it comes to cooking. She often forgets to scrape the scales when making fish soup, Yifan said calmly. Did you forget to scrape the scales? Akatsuki asked. Yifan nodded, and the smile on his face disappeared. Akatsuki's fish soup made him miss Fujiwara no Chiko even more. Are you used to living here? Akatsuki saw that Yifan was reminded of something sad and immediately diverted his attention. I'm fine, but Xiao Zhao isn't used to it, Yifan said as he stroked Baihu. The waves on the sea are strong, and the ship is rocking back and forth, making it lose its appetite. When Baihu heard this, it immediately raised its head and intimately bumped Yifan's hand with its head, then lowered its head and continued to eat. Don't worry about that, Akatsuki said as she looked at Baihu. In the future, I'll take care of Xiao Zhao's food. I promise it'll like it. This is too much trouble for Miss You, isn't it? Yifan was slightly hesitant after hearing this. To be honest, he didn't want to have too much contact with Akatsuki. But even so, he didn't want Xiao Zhao to suffer with him. Looking for the 9 cauldrons wasn't something that could be done in a day or two. If this went on, Xiao Zhao would definitely starve to death. It's not troublesome at all. Anyway, there's nothing to do on the ship, Akatsuki said as she reached out to touch Baihu. When Baihu, who was eating, saw Akatsuki reach out to touch it, it immediately raised its head and instinctively took a step back. Akatsuki's hand immediately stopped in the air. It didn't know whether to extend or withdraw it. At this moment, Baihu moved. It timidly walked to Akatsuki's hand and used its head to nudge Akatsuki's palm, then immediately retreated. After all, he had already eaten their food, so he had to be polite no matter what. Speaking of which, Akatsuki didn't give it a hateful feeling at this moment. It can accept me? Baihu's action made Akatsuki overjoyed. Women naturally like small animals. Although Xiao Zhao was now a fox, it was pure white all over. It was unusually agile and furry, very cute. In addition, Akatsuki was moved by Xiao Zhao's heroic act of risking her life to save Yifan. Naturally, she liked Xiao Zhao even more. Greedy fellow. Yifan touched Baihu's head. By the way, Yifan said without raising his head while touching Baihu, tomorrow, you'll go out with me. Go out? Akatsuki looked at Yifan. Where are we going? You'll know tomorrow, Yifan said. Is this a mission from Mr. Matsumoto? Akatsuki frowned and asked. No, Yi Fan said as he raised his head. Akatsuki frowned with a puzzled expression. I've already reached an agreement with Matsumoto Takeyoshi, Yi Fan said calmly to Akatsuki. During the time I'm looking for the cauldron for him, I can move freely, provided that I'm with you. Akatsuki nodded slowly and didn't say anything. Rest well tonight. We'll leave early tomorrow morning, Yi Fan continued. Before you leave, tell Matsumoto Takeyoshi that I won't be going. Okay, Akatsuki said as she stood up. You rest well too. I'll leave first. I'll send you off, Yi Fan said as he stood up. Akatsuki nodded and turned to go downstairs. Yi Fan followed, closely behind. The two of them came to the door one after the other. Thank you for the fish soup. Miss you, Yi Fan said to Akatsuki after opening the cabin door. Bufonkoin, you're too polite. Akatsuki opened the red umbrella in her hand as she turned to Yi Fan and said, I'll leave first. Yi Fan nodded. Chapter 380. Outside Miaojiang. Night. In the dense forest, Yi Yun, who was dressed in black, had a bag on his back and a sword in his hand. He used the land flight technique and quickly flew on the ground. He could not stay in Great Ming Dynasty for too long. After all, the Yi family was still in Mongolia. As the head of the Yi family, he had to put his family first. 3 days had passed, and Yi Fan, who went to Purple Sun Temple to deliver the sword, did not return to Pear Blossom Palace. An ominous premonition flashed across Yi Yun's mind. His grandson, with heaven-defying cultivation, might really have gone to help Matsumoto Takeyoshi find a cauldron. If that was the case, this matter would not be easy to handle. Although Yi Fan's intention of helping Matsumoto Takeyoshi was to save Fujiwara no Chiko, in the eyes of outsiders, this was treason. This was making an enemy of the entire Great Ming Dynasty. Once this news spread throughout the Jianghu, not only Yi Fan, but the entire Yi family would be cursed for eternity. Thinking of this, Yi Yun could not help but smile bitterly. Now that the Yi family had been stripped of their position and had been forced into exile, they had been accused of plotting a rebellion. Even if Yi Fan did not help Matsumoto Takeyoshi, the Yi family's reputation had been ruined. Now that he was a wanted criminal of the imperial court, he was still thinking for Great Ming Dynasty. It was truly ironic. Whatever, I'll just let him do it. Perhaps this is the will of the heavens. Ian thought to himself, you're in such a hurry. Where are you going? Just as Ian was thinking about this, a cold voice came from all around the forest. After hearing this voice, Ian immediately stopped and stood in place, vigilantly looking around. He seemed to have heard this man's voice somewhere before, but he could not remember where. Who is it? Ian looked around with a pair of sharp eyes as he asked. A strange laughter came from all around. What? You don't even remember me. You're really forgetful, Master Yi. Who are you? Ian asked with a frown when the other party revealed his identity. He. Following a burst of strange laughter, a huge black palanquin broke through the thick clouds in the sky and rushed towards Yi Yun like a bolt of lightning. The black palanquin was as black as ink. 4 exquisite human skin lanterns hung from the 4 corners of the palanquin Ming Dynasty. Red. Under the gentle breeze, the human skin lanterns swayed with the wind, looking very strange in the dark night. When Yi Yun's Wudu's face was filled with anger, he gritted his teeth. Wudu! He. You finally remembered me. A creepy laugh came from the palanquin. The creepy black palanquin slowly descended and stopped about 70 feet behind Yi Yun. The red light emitted by the human-skinned lanterns dyed the ground within 30 feet of the black palanquin red. I'll recognize you even if you turn into ashes. Ian gritted his teeth as he looked at the black and red palanquin in front of him. He. After so many years, your temper still hasn't changed. Following the strange laughter, the black palanquin's curtains were lifted. A middle-aged man wearing dark green clothes with a green turban on his head slowly walked out of the palanquin. This person's face was pale and his body was thin. A pair of vicious eyes shone in all directions, like a demon or a ghost. It made people shudder at the sight of it. On his body, a green python as thick as an arm was coiled around his body. Its tail was at his waist, and its head was at his shoulder. On the triangular snake head, a pair of cold and resentful brown eyes stared at Yi Yun. It flicked its blood-red tongue from time to time. "What are you looking for me for?" Yi Yun went straight to the point. "We haven't seen each other for so many years. I'm here to catch up with you." He. Wu Du laughed eerily. "I have nothing to catch up with you," Yi Yun said coldly. "Nothing to catch up with? Why would I?" Wu Du turned his head and fiddled with the green python's head on his shoulder as he laughed. "So many things happened back then. Don't tell me you've forgotten all of them? Humph. You still have the nerve to mention the past to me?" Yi Yun sneered. "Back then, you coveted your master's green sorcerer scripture. You secretly poisoned the cattail hassock with the intention of killing your master. If I didn't discover it in time, Senior Tian Kanzi would have been killed by you. You're right. I was the one who did it, but so what?" Wu Du looked coldly at Yi Yun. "Back then, my cultivation was destroyed by that old man, and I was kicked out of the sect. I've already paid him back. From now on, we don't owe each other anything. Since you've already done that, why are you looking for me?" Yi Yun asked coldly. "I've already done that with him, but I haven't done that with you." Wu Du's mouth curved as he spoke. He laughed eerily and said, "I'm looking for you today to clear this debt." "Debt with me?" "Humph." Yi Yun sneered. "What debt do I have with you?" "Haha. Back then, you broke up Junior Sister Golden Silkworm and I. If you hadn't interfered, we would have been a couple long ago. If I don't look for you, who else can I look for to repay this debt?" Wu Du said with a vicious smile. Chapter 381. Kina. Ha ha. Wu Du threw his head back and laughed. His laughter was bleak and sorrowful. "You still have the nerve to call her Kina? If it weren't for you, would Junior Marshall's sister be in such pain today? You snatch her away from me. I don't blame you. As long as Junior Marshall's sister is happy, I, Wu Du, am willing. But what about you?" As Wu Du spoke, he suddenly looked at Yi Yun. His eyes were like knives. "After you obtained her feelings, not only did you not formally marry her, you even heartlessly abandoned her because of some bullshit head of household position." Yi Yun frowned and lowered his head in silence. "Is the head of household position of the Yi family that important to you?" Wu Du angrily asked Yi Yun. "Immense wealth, weaponsmithing divine manual, great power in your hands. Are these things more important to you than Junior Marshall's sister's happiness?" Yi Yun did not say a word. His eyes were staring straight ahead. "You either don't like her or give her happiness. But you?" Wu Du's eyes were red. He angrily roared. "What kind of man are you by doing this? Do you know that Junior Marshall's sister's entire life has been ruined by your hands? If I don't look for you to repay this debt, who else can I look for?" "I have indeed wronged her," Yi Yun said in a low voice. "But I have my difficulties." "Difficulties?" "Humph," Wu Du sneered. "You have great power in your hands and a beauty by your side. What difficulties can you have? If you can say it, then it's not a difficulty." Yi Yun raised his head and looked at Wu Du. He calmly said, "I don't need to explain anything to you. There's also no need to explain anything to you. This matter has nothing to do with you. Kinner is free to like whomever she wants. It's not up to a degenerate of Pear Blossom Palace like you to comment on the matters between us." "You." Wu Du choked on Yi Yun's words. "I don't have time to waste here, and I don't want to talk to you about what happened in the past. Please don't bother me in the future." Yi Yun turned around and slowly walked away. "You have done such a heartless thing, yet boast shamelessly that you have difficulties. I really don't know how you became the master of the Yi clan." Wu Du's cold laugh came from behind Yi Yun. "No wonder the Yi clan is wanted by the court and stripped of your rank. With a master like you who is unworthy of the position, the decline of the Yi clan is a matter of time." After hearing Wu Du's words, Yi Yun, who had walked less than 3 meters away, stopped and slowly turned around. "What? Am I wrong?" Wu Du sneered as he looked at Yi Yun. "The Yi clan's power is now gone. Isn't it all because of your stupidity and incompetence? The Yi clan's current situation is all because of you. You can't blame anyone else." Yi Yun narrowed his eyes at Wu Du, his fist clenched so tightly that his knuckles cracked. Oh, I understand now. Wu Do slapped his forehead as he spoke, as if he had suddenly realized something. You'll definitely say that you have your own difficulties. Otherwise, the Yi family wouldn't have declined to this state, and you wouldn't have to hide like a stray dog, right? Master Yi? TSK, TSK, TSK. Wudu shook his head and pursed his lips. Sometimes, I really admire your thick skin. When the Yi clan was at its peak, you didn't return to Pear Blossom Palace to see junior sister. When the Yi clan was powerless, you shamelessly came to Pear Blossom Palace to find her. You are indeed a swordsmithing expert. You really are worthy of the word cheap. Phew! Ian took a deep breath, turned around, and prepared to leave. Wudu's intentions were clear. He kept humiliating him, wanting to force him to make the first move. He wouldn't fall for it. You and your grandson are the same. You only know how to hide. Wudu laughed from behind. If junior sister hadn't protected him last time, I would have captured him alive. The Yi clan is nothing more than that. They're all cowards. Whoosh. As soon as Wudu finished speaking, Yi Yun's figure disappeared. His words completely enraged Yi Yun. Yi Yun didn't care if he was humiliated, but he couldn't tolerate his clansmen being humiliated. What a nimble movement technique. Seeing Yi Yun disappear in an instant, Wudu's pupils constricted. Clang! Just as he was marveling at Yi Yun's movement technique, the roar of a tiger and the roar of a dragon came from midair. Wudu looked up. In midair, Yi Yun, who was dressed in black, had already unsheathed the snow thread sword that was as bright as snow. The man and the sword were like a shadow as they charged at him at high speed. Yi Yun's eyes were bright as he descended. Whoosh! When he was less than 10 feet away from Wudu, Yi Yun waved the sword in his hand. A snow-white arc of light suddenly shot out from the snow thread sword and whistled towards Wudu. The speed of the arc of light was as fast as lightning. On the ground, seeing Yi Yun use the snow thread sword, Wudu didn't dare to be negligent and immediately waved his sleeves. Bang! A dense green smoke suddenly rose from Wudu's body, completely enveloping him and the black palanquin with a human-skinned lantern hanging from it. Boom! Debris flew everywhere and dust rose. The majestic sword aura of the snow thread sword instantly pierced through the green smoke and bombarded the forest. In the blink of an eye, a chasm more than 10 feet long and 3 feet deep appeared on the flat ground. Whoosh! Ian landed on the ground. He held the sword in his right hand and covered his nose with his left hand. His eyes were bright as he looked up at the black palanquin floating in midair. This Wudu was indeed powerful. He was actually able to dodge my sword aura in the nick of time. Ian thought to himself, the head of the Yi family is only SOSO. In midair, Wudu laughed from within the black palanquin. Ian smiled and held the sword in his hand. He didn't say anything. Chapter 382. Whoosh. After the curtain separated from the body of the sedan, it instantly turned into a 3-inch piece of black paper and floated down. Just like Jean Chan's red sedan, Wudu's black sedan was also made of paper. Inside the black sedan, Wudu frowned slightly after losing the curtain. Yi Yun's sword chi cultivation was far more powerful than he had imagined. Gu King Wudu, you're just a figurehead, Yi Yun retorted from the ground. I'm going to take your life today, Wudu said coldly from inside the black sedan. Only with your death will junior sister change her mind about me. Change her mind? You're really delusional. Yi Yun sneered at Wudu. How can like a scum like you who betrays his master? Junior sister and I have been childhood sweethearts. She knows my feelings better than anyone else. If you hadn't appeared, we would have been together long ago. Wudu looked coldly at Yi Yun on the ground. Cut the crap. Hand over your life. Wudu's lips curled up as he spoke, his killing intent surging. Wong. Just as Wudu finished speaking, a thick layer of black smoke began to envelop the huge black sedan. The entire black sedan was billowing with black smoke, and a murderous aura rose. It was Miaojiang's witchcraft. Looking at the strange black sedan with black smoke rising in the air, Yi Yun frowned. Although his sword Qi was powerful, it wouldn't be of much use against Miaojiang's witchcraft. Whoosh! While Yi Yun was on high alert, two bull-thick pillars of black smoke spurted out of the ink-black palanquin and pounced on Yi Yun on the ground. Yi Yun on the ground saw the other party coming at him menacingly and didn't dare to delay. He immediately activated the snow sword in his hand. Wong! The snow sword suddenly let out a long cry under Yi Yun's control, and a white light shone brightly. Yi Yun swung the long sword in his hand at the two streaks of black smoke that were attacking him. Whoosh! A snow-white arc of light shot out from the snow sword and went straight for the black smoke. Oomph! Wudu sneered from inside the black sedan. The two pillars of poisonous smoke that he shot out had no substance. No matter how powerful Yi Yun's sword Qi was, it couldn't do anything to them. Whoosh! Just as he expected, the white arc of light from the snow sword instantly pierced through the two pillars of black smoke. However, the black pillar of smoke was not hindered in the slightest, and it continued to charge toward Yi Yun. However, even though Yi Yun's sword energy was unable to stop Wu Du's two streams of black smoke, the black smoke was unable to stop Yi Yun's sword energy either. As the black smoke shot towards Yi Yun, the sharp arc of light pierced through the black smoke and shot towards Wu Du's black palanquin. Yi Yun's light arc sword Qi whistled, like a meteor chasing after the moon. Wu Du's black smoke billowed like a black dragon exploring the sea. The two of them were of the same. Whoosh! When Yi Yun's sword Qi was less than one zhang away from the black sedan, Wu Du laughed disdainfully. He urged the black sedan to rise quickly, avoiding Yi Yun's attack. Yi Yun frowned and used his movement technique to move one zhang away, dodging the attack of the black smoke. Boom! Thick smoke billowed and the poisonous smoke dispersed. After the two pillars of black smoke reached the ground, they quickly exploded and spread out. The black smoke spread so quickly that Yi Yun, who was 3 zhang away, couldn't react in time and was instantly engulfed by the black smoke. Qi! Wherever the black smoke passed, all the vegetation would wither and turn black, turning into black, scorched earth. Cough, cough, cough. Within the thick black smoke, Yi Yun's coughs could be heard. Ha ha! In the black sedan floating in the air, Wu Du laughed heartily. The initial attack of the black smoke was only a pretense. The explosion of the poisonous smoke was the real killer move. This poisonous smoke was called the bone-dissolving worm. It was something that Wu Du had carefully refined. It was extremely poisonous. If an ordinary person came into contact with it, they would turn into pus and blood. Not even their bones would be left. Yi Yun had been engulfed by his poisonous smoke and must have inhaled quite a bit of it. In less than 2 hours, his intestines and stomach would rot, and he would die. How is it? Master Yi, this poisonous smoke doesn't taste good, right? Wu Du laughed as he urged the black sedan to descend slowly. Cough, cough, cough. Within the poisonous smoke, Yi Yun's coughs became more and more intense. Wu Du stopped the black sedan a zhang above the poisonous smoke. He laughed and said to Yi Yun, "Don't struggle. The more you struggle, the more painful it will be. Don't you have a sword in your hand? While you're still conscious, end it yourself." Thinking about how he could finally avenge the hatred that had accumulated for so many years, Wu Du's mood was extremely good. Cough, cough. Within the black smoke, Yi Yun's coughs became weaker and weaker. Finally, there was no more movement. TSK, TSK, TSK. Wu Du laughed and shook his head. Just now, he was still alive and kicking. Now, he's just a pile of scorched earth. Wu Du urged the black sedan to descend slowly again. He wanted to see how ugly Yi Yun's death would be. A pile of rotten flesh? A pile of bones? Or a pool of pus? Wu Du was very curious about how Yi Yun, who had cultivated sword energy, would look like now. Chapter 383. Wu Du furrowed his brows at first, then smiled. This white light was probably emitted by the snow sword. Not only did he get his revenge today, he also obtained a peerless divine weapon. It was a double blessing. Wu Du smiled proudly. Once Yin died, his junior sister would definitely give up. Then, she would naturally accept him. Revenge, a beauty by his side, and a divine weapon in hand. The more Wu Du thought about it, the happier he became. He even started humming a folk song from Miaojiang. He suspended the black sedan above the poisonous fog. Then he extended his hand towards the fog, preparing to suck the divine weapon, Snow Sword, up. However, he was wrong. What awaited him was indeed the Snow Sword, but it was the sword energy of the Snow Sword. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. Just as he extended his hand towards the poisonous fog, a brilliant sword energy suddenly shot out from the black fog, heading straight for Wu Du, who was 5 feet away. It was the sword energy. Yi Yin was not dead yet. Wu Du's pupils constricted instantly. Wu Du was indeed the Gu King of Miaojiang. Even if MT Tai collapsed in front of him, his expression would not change. The moment the sword energy attacked, he quickly activated the black sedan. The front end of the sedan was lifted up and the back end of the sedan was pressed down. At this moment, it was already too late for him to move the black sedan aside. Making the black sedan stand upright was the best way to avoid the sword energy. Whoosh! As the black sedan stood upright, the sword energy of the snow sword also rushed up. Kacha! As the black sedan stood upright a little slower than the sword energy, the front end of the black sedan was instantly chopped off by the sword energy of the snow sword. Whoosh! Wu Du activated the tattered black sedan chair that had lost its curtains and handles, and once again rose into the air. After stabilizing the black sedan, a shocked Wu Du stared at the poisonous fog on the ground that had yet to dissipate. If not for his quick reaction, he and the black sedan would have been cut in half by Yi Yun's sword energy. It was obvious that Yi Yun's coughing was purposely made. His goal was to lure him into a trap and then launch a sneak attack. Bang! Just as Wu Du was thinking about this, a loud sound came from the ground. Black smoke scattered in all directions, and the thick, poisonous smoke instantly disappeared into nothingness. On the ground, Yi Yun held the snow thread sword in his hand, a smile on his face as he looked up at Wu Du. What? Within the black palanquin, Wu Du suddenly slapped the armrest as he stared in disbelief at the completely unharmed Yi Yun on the ground. He didn't expect that Yi Yun, who had been struck by his bone-dissolving poison smoke, would actually be able to retreat unscathed and even counterattack. What kind of evil technique did this Yi Yun cultivate to have this kind of ability? Wu Du thought as he looked at Yi Yun's feet. Within a radius of 50 feet around Yi Yun, there was nothing but scorched earth. The bone-melting poison smoke had formed a massive and shocking black circle around this area. Within the circle, not even a blade of grass grew. Other than Yi Yun, there was no other living thing. Impossible! Wu Du shouted from the black palanquin. Yi Yun smiled. Just a mere poisonous smoke. What can it do to me? Wong! Wu Du flipped his palm, and a 5-inch large ball of black smoke immediately condensed in his palm. After the smoke ball was formed, Wu Du did not say anything and sent a palm strike towards Yi Yun, who was on the ground. Shwa! Rolling black smoke shot out from Wu Du's palm, once again shooting towards Yi Yun. He wanted to see how Yi Yun would dodge his poisonous smoke. On the ground, Yi Yun held his sword upside down, a smile on his face. Facing the incoming black smoke, it was as if nothing had happened. The black smoke arrived in the blink of an eye. Bang! When the black smoke was 5 feet away from Yi Yun, it suddenly exploded and directly went around Yi Yun, charging behind Yi Yun. The thick black smoke formed a black sphere around Yi Yun. It was sword chi. Wu Du and the black palanquin suddenly understood. After not seeing him for more than 10 years, Yi Yun had actually cultivated a protective sword chi. No wonder his bone-dissolving poisonous smoke did not work. So this was a reason. I didn't expect that after not seeing you for more than 10 years, your sword chi could be cultivated to such a level. Wu Du and the black palanquin laughed. At this moment, he actually had a smile on his face. Likewise, Yi Yun on the ground replied with a smile. Your poison technique is not bad either. Hee hee. Wu Du laughed sinisterly again. He leaned out of the black palanquin, his eyes staring straight at Yi Yun on the ground. His eyes were hollow and as sharp as knives. Do you know, ever since that old man Tiancan touched my pear blossom palace, my goal has always been to kill you, Wu Du said with a sinister smile. In order to kill you, I've been seeking masters everywhere, bitterly cultivating secret techniques and secret witchcraft, all so that I can one day break your sword chi. Yi Yun frowned after hearing that. He knew that Wu Du hated him, but he did not expect it to be such a deep hatred. It could be seen that Wu Du's feelings for Jin Shan were no less than his own. To be honest, if he did not accidentally discover that Wu Du had poisoned Tianquinzi's praying mat, Wu Du would have already become husband and wife with Jin Shan. If that was the case, he would not even have the chance to interact with Jin Shan, let alone develop feelings for her. To be honest, he had to thank Wu Du, the heavens of eyes, allowing you to cultivate an invisible sword chi, and allowing me to find a way to break your sword chi. He. Ha ha, Wu Du said and laughed toward the sky. Only he knew how he lived these past 10 years. It was hatred that supported him to live on tenaciously. Chapter 384. For this goal, he was willing to pay any price. After mastering the secret technique, he had been hiding in the surroundings of Pear Blossom Palace, not for any other reason but to see his beloved junior sister. At that time, the Yi family was at the peak of its power. There were many experts in high positions. He had once sneaked into the Yi family's ancestral home at night, waiting for an opportunity to kill Yi Yun, but he did not do so. The reason was simple. The statue enshrined in the ancestral hall of the Yi family made him feel uneasy. Not only him, the snake on his body was also very anxious when approaching the Yi family's ancestral home. The snake on his body was not an ordinary creature. It was one of the legendary dragon-type divine beasts, the flying serpent. To be able to make the flying serpent feel anxious, one could imagine its strength. On the night when Yi Fan returned to the ancestral home, he was waiting for an opportunity at the foot of the eagle's distress peak. However, when he saw the divine dragon appear in the Yi family's ancestral home with his own eyes, he understood why the flying serpent was so anxious. In the Yi family's ancestral home, there was the protection of the gods. Since then, he had been secretly guarding the Miao Stockade village, waiting for the day when Yi Yun appeared in the Miao Stockade village. He would be able to kill Yi Yun with his own hands. Unfortunately, the one who came was not Yi Yun, but Yi Yun's eldest grandson, Yi Fan. At that time, he had planned to use Yi Fan as a hostage to force Yi Yun to appear, but because Jin Shan was protecting Yi Fan, he could not achieve his wish. It was not because he was not Jin Shan's opponent. His current cultivation was not below Jin Shan's. If he was serious, Jin Shan could not do anything to him. It was just that he did not want to make things too awkward with his beloved junior sister. The flying locust formation that day was just an excuse to leave. If he really left without making a move, it would instead arouse Jin Shan's suspicion. When he learned that the imperial court had stripped the Yi family of their titles and arrested them everywhere, he was so excited that he could not sleep. The Yi family had fallen. Yi Yun would definitely leave the ancestral home. Maybe he would come back to the Miao Stockade village to find Jin Shan. In that case, he would have a chance to kill him. Everything was as he expected. Yi Yun really rushed to Miaojiang. Unfortunately, he still couldn't show himself at that time. There were two reasons for this. First, Yi Yun was not alone at that time. Yi Kong and Yi Chun were always by his side. These two people's cultivations were not shallow, especially Yi Kong. It was said that this person was known as the genius of the Yi family. When he was young, he was taught the ethereal sword art by a mysterious expert. His strength was not to be underestimated. Second, at that time, the 5 great masters of Japan had already arrived in Miaojiang. At that time, the only ones by Jin Shan's side were Baihu Xiao Zhao, Mu Sun, and Xue Ling. In comparison, Jin Shan's strength was not superior. The arrival of Yi Yun's trio just happened to fill the gap. This could be said to be a heaven-sent opportunity, and he could not lose it again. Yi Yun was alone, and there was not a single helper by his side. In addition, this place was already outside of Miaojiang. The mountains were high, and the forest was dense. If he killed Yi Yun here, it could be said that no one would know. Wu Du's words made Yi Yun on the ground frown. This Wu Du actually said that he had found a way to break the sword chi. How was that possible? As far as he knew, there was only one way to break the sword chi. That was to use the same sword chi to break the opponent's sword chi. Other than that, there was no other way. I want to see what you're going to use to break my sword chi, Yi Yun said, and took a step forward. Here, this is it. Wu Du and the black palanquin smiled and stretched out his hand. A black ant appeared in his palm. The ant was 3 inches long, with a pair of wings on its back. Its body was surrounded by black gas. Other than its size, it looked similar to an ordinary ant. Looking at the black ant crawling around Wu Du's fingers, Yi Yun frowned. Such a small thing can break my sword chi? What a joke. Humph. Yi Yun sneered. What? You don't believe me? He. Looking at Yi Yun's disdainful expression, Wu Du and the black palanquin smiled and said to Yi Yun, Don't worry, you'll know soon enough. Wu Du smiled as he bent his middle finger and pressed his thumb on it, following which he exerted some force and flicked it. Pa! The 3 inches long black ant was instantly sent flying by Wu Du. It flew directly towards Yi Yun. Yi Yun did not know whether to laugh or cry at this scene. How capable could an ant be? It actually wanted to break his invisible sword chi. What a joke. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After the black ant left Wu Du's fingers, it quickly flapped its wings and let out an ear-piercing buzzing sound. Yi Yun smiled and lightly kicked a small stone on the ground with the tip of his foot. Pa! The small stone suddenly flew up and rushed towards the incoming black ant. A small ant was not worth his sword chi. Pa! A crisp sound was heard, and the pebble instantly broke into several pieces. The winged black ant continued to charge towards him with a hissing sound. This scene shocked Yi Yun, who had a look of disdain on his face. This small ant was actually so tough that it could actually break a pebble. Seeing that the little ant was flying closer and closer, Yi Yun did not have time to think. He suddenly activated the sword chi in his body and pointed at the little ant that was less than 10 feet away from him. Whoosh! An invisible sword chi suddenly shot out from Yi Yun's sword finger and went straight for the buzzing little ant. Pa! The little ant in midair was instantly hit by Yi Yun's sword chi. Squeak! The little ant, which was surrounded by black gas, did not instantly break into pieces like Yi Yun had imagined. Not only that, it even let out an excited cry. Yi Yun's expression instantly froze. His sword chi was already able to cut through gold and jade, but it had no effect on this little ant. Chapter 385. Whoosh! The 2 black ants arrived in front of Yi Yun in the blink of an eye. In a moment of desperation, Yi Yun instinctively activated his protective sword chi. Wong! A formless protective sword chi instantly enveloped Yi Yun. Pa! Pa! The 2 black ants collided with Yi Yun's sword chi barrier. Squeak! Squeak! The 2 black ants stuck close to Yi Yun's sword chi barrier. Then, they stuck their heads into the sword chi barrier and began to crazily absorb Yi Yun's sword chi. Yi Yun's pupils instantly constricted. These little insects were actually able to absorb his sword chi. Squeak, squeak, squeak. After the 2 black ants absorbed Yi Yun's pure sword chi, their bodies instantly swelled. Bang! Black smoke rose everywhere. The 2 enlarged black ants once again split into 2, turning into 4. Yi Yun's face instantly turned pale. He finally understood the method Wu Du had mentioned to break his sword chi barrier. These little insects were able to feed on his sword chi. Whoosh! Yi Yun waved the sword in his hand and ruthlessly slashed at the 4 black ants on the sword chi barrier. Bang! 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 Sparks flew in all directions, and the 4 black ants wrapped in black gas were instantly cut in half. However, a scene that left him flabbergasted appeared. After the 4 black ants were cut into 2, they instantly turned into 8. These black ants fed on sword chi, and the snow thread sword naturally had sword chi. Moreover, the sword chi was even purer than the sword chi in Yi Yun's body. Therefore, under the attack of the snow thread sword, not only did the black ants not die, they became even more powerful. What a powerful insect technique! Yi Yun frowned as he thought of a countermeasure. At the same time, he activated the pure sword chi in his body to replenish his sword chi barrier. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Just as Yi Yun was thinking hard about a countermeasure, the number of black ants on the sword chi barrier changed again. 8, 16, 32, 64. In the blink of an eye, the 5-foot-long sword energy shield was densely covered with hundreds of black ants. The swarm of black ants made one's scalp go numb. The buzzing sound of wings flapping and the squeaking sound of gnawing was even more chilling. A sinister smile appeared on Wu Du's face as he hovered in the black palanquin. These are the iron dust ants that I have spent 5 years cultivating. They feed on iron dust and love sword chi the most. Hee. Wu Du looked at Yi Yun, who was surrounded by the iron dust ants on the ground, and laughed strangely. You can wait for your death inside. Yi Yun frowned when he heard Wu Du's word from within the sword chi barrier. If this continued, no matter how abundant his sword chi was, it would be devoured by more and more iron dust ants. At that time, not to mention Wu Du, even an ordinary martial arts expert would be able to kill him in one move. He had to think of a solution as soon as possible. Yi Yun looked at the dense swarm of ants around him and quickly thought of a countermeasure. In the current situation, even if he used his movement skill, it would be useless. These iron dust ants had wings and were extremely fast. He would not be able to shake them off in a short time. If he did that, it would be a waste of his sword chi. After pondering for a moment, Yi Yun took out a match from his bosom. As the saying goes, water and fire are merciless. No matter how powerful these iron dust ants were, they would still have a weakness. Since they were not afraid of his sword chi, he wondered if they were afraid of fire. Yi Yun blew on the fire starter, and then instantly opened up a gap in the sword energy shield. He pressed the burning fire starter down on an iron dust ant that was about to crawl in. Chi, squeak. After a puff of smoke, the iron dust ant let out a cry and quickly crawled away. This thing was afraid of fire, but weak flames would not have any effect on it. Ian thought as he closed the sword energy shield again. Seeing Ian use the match to roast the iron dust ant, Wu Du, who was in the black palanquin, could not help but laugh. These iron dust ants usually feed on iron dust, so they can naturally withstand ordinary flames. I advise you not to struggle and obediently wait for death. If only Fan Airsley Hoasword was here, Ian thought with a frown. That day in the battle at the ancestral mansion, he had personally witnessed the terrifying power of this sword. If he had this sword, he would not have to worry about these iron dust ants. Unfortunately, Yi Fan had left Pear Blossom Palace for a few days, and there was no news of him. If he wanted to escape, he could only rely on himself. Squeak, squeak, squeak. More and more iron dust ants appeared on the sword energy shield. Looking from afar, Yi Yun's sword energy shield was already like a giant ball of black gas. Whoosh! Following the continuous gnawing of the ants, Yi Yun's sword energy shield began to slowly shrink. Within the sword energy shield, Yi Yun's face began to turn pale, and fine sweat gradually seeped out. His sword energy was about to dry up. Leader Yi, have a safe journey. I won't be sending you off. Wu Du laughed evilly as he looked at Yi Yun, who was completely surrounded by the iron dust ants. The person who is leaving is not me, but you. Yi Yun's weak voice sounded out from within the sword energy shield. His voice was not loud. It was extremely icy cold. You're about to die, yet you're still so stubborn. Within the black palanquin, Wu Du curled his lips and laughed. Besides his sword energy cultivation, Yi Yun did not have any other special techniques. Now that he was surrounded by his iron dust ants, it could be said that he was a turtle in a jar, unable to escape. As far as he was concerned, Yi Yun's words were only some vicious words before his death. Chapter 386. This is... Wu Du, who was in the black palanquin, was completely stunned by the scene in front of him. It was obvious that the red light was not sword energy. Wu Du, who was in midair, pointed his hand at the ants on the ground and spread his fingers. Whoosh! The dense swarm of ants created a gap in Yi Yun's sword energy barrier. With a flash, Wu Du saw Yi Yun in the sword energy barrier, who knew that it would have been better if he had not seen it. Once he saw it, he was so shocked that his pupils shrank. Inside the sword energy barrier, which had shrunk to 3 feet, Yi Yun's body was covered in red light. His hair was standing up, and his black robe was fluttering in the wind. His pair of sharp eyes stared at Wu Du burning sky technique. Wu Du exclaimed in shock. "You have the burning sky technique." The burning sky technique was a secret technique created by Tian Kanzi. It was extremely powerful. It was said that the technique was in the shape of flames. There were 3 green and 7 red flames, representing the 3 souls and 7 spirits of the human body. Every time it was used, it would consume at least 10 years of one's lifespan. It could even sacrifice one's soul. Back then, when Tian Kanzi fought against his martial uncle Ka Sang, who had cultivated into an evil sorcerer, he had used this diagram. With just one move, he had severely injured Ka Sang, who had a heaven-defying cultivation base. 200 years of cultivation base had vanished into thin air. The power of this technique was imaginable. Wu Du did not expect that Tian Kanzi would give this technique to Yi Yun. "I did not expect that old man to give this to you." Wu Du gritted his teeth and said, "Even when I was his first disciple, he did not give this technique to me. You, an outsider, actually got it. That old man is indeed biased. If this technique were to fall into your hands, wouldn't the people be in a terrible situation?" Yi Yun, who was in the sword energy barrier, said sternly, "Today, even if I have to sacrifice 10 years of my lifespan, I will kill you, an ungrateful traitor." As Yi Yun spoke, he suddenly opened his eyes. Buzz! The red light around Yi Yun's body surged. Bang! The iron dust ants on the sword energy barrier were instantly blown away by the red light. At the same time, the ants were burning with flames. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Thousands upon thousands of iron dust ants shrieked miserably as they turned into a puff of black smoke and dissipated into nothingness. The air was immediately filled with a burnt smell. Then, he looked at Yi Yun. Red light burst out from his body, and raging flames rose. A huge red ball of light about 10 feet in size appeared, and it was spinning nonstop. What a powerful burning heavens diagram. Inside the black palanquin, Wu Du frowned. "Wu Du, within the sphere of light," Yi Yun pointed at the black palanquin. "You deserve to die today." As he spoke, he activated the burning the heavens diagram on his back, preparing to burn Wu Du to ashes in one move. "Good. Today, I, Wu Du, want to see just what level you have reached with your burning the heavens diagram." As he spoke, Wu Du slapped the armrest of the black palanquin. Boom! Black light instantly erupted from the black palanquin. A huge black ball of light enveloped the entire black palanquin. The black ball of light was about 10 feet in size. Black energy swirled around it, making it look like ink. To be called the king of venomous worms, his cultivation level was naturally not undeserved. One was enveloped in a red light and raging flames, while the other was enveloped in a black light and emitted an evil light. The two forces refused to give way to each other. Shwa! Just as the two of them were preparing to use their ultimate techniques to compete, a majestic and invisible force suddenly struck down from the sky. Boom! Rocks and dust flew everywhere. The shocking force directly hit the ground between the two of them. What a powerful force! The two of them instantly retreated. Yi Yun retreated about 3 feet, while Wudu also raised the black palanquin by several feet. The two of them did not know whether the newcomer was a friend or foe. Both of them were on high alert. When the dust that filled the sky gradually settled down, a 3 zhang long and 5 feet deep chasm instantly appeared on the ground. "It's sword chi," Ian exclaimed in his heart. Who could have such a powerful sword chi? Could it be? A name suddenly flashed across Yi Yun's mind. Yi Ming. Impossible. Yi Yun immediately shook his head. At that time, Yi Ming had said in the ancestral home that he would not interfere in the affairs of the Yi family. From this, it seemed that the newcomer was definitely not Yi Ming. While Yi Yun was racking his brains, Wudu was also pondering in the black sedan. The chasm on the ground was obviously caused by the sword chi. To be able to produce such sword chi, the person's cultivation was definitely not ordinary. If he guessed correctly, the newcomer should be related to the Yi family. Shua. Just as the two of them were guessing the identity of the newcomer, a figure appeared on the ground between them. This person had a delicate face, handsome face, eyes like stars, teeth like jade, a scholar's headband, green robes, and a scholarly appearance. Yi Yun frowned. For some reason, Yi Yun felt that this person was very familiar, but he could not recall where he had seen him before. Wudu also frowned. He was not interested in who this person was, but he was very clear about one thing. This person's sword chi had been trained to the point of perfection. The reason was simple. This person was empty-handed and did not have a weapon. To be able to produce such majestic sword chi with his bare hands, one could imagine the cultivation level of this person, the appearance of the burning, the heavens painting, and the mysterious expert. It seemed that he would not be able to take revenge today. Wudu thought. Yi Yun. After the newcomer appeared, he turned to Yi Yun and said, "Take away the burning, the heavens painting." After hearing this, Yi Yun's heart jumped. Not only did this person recognize him, but he also knew about the burning, the heavens painting. "Who are you?" Yi Yun asked. Chapter 387. Ancestor Worship, Vow, and Worship. Yi Yun was puzzled when he heard this. Every time he worshipped the ancestors, he would be worshipping the ancestors of the past. When had he ever bowed to him? Could it be? Yi Yun suddenly thought of the dozens of portraits of the Yi clan's heads hanging in the ancestral hall. One of the portraits looked almost exactly like this person in front of him. Could it be you are? Yi Yun was tongue-tied. "Looks like you remember," the blue-robed scholar said with a smile. "Impossible," Yi Yun blurted out. He could not believe that this blue-robed scholar was the head of the Yi clan from hundreds of years ago. Weaponsmiths use intent as the guide, chi as the firewood, divine talismans as the cover, true fire as the smelting, and essence, chi, and spirit into the weapon, the blue-robed scholar said in a clear voice as he walked towards Yi Yun. These words shocked Yi Yun so much that he immediately withdrew the sky-burning diagram. His knees went weak, and he knelt on the ground. Yi Yun, the 33rd generation descendant of the Yi clan, greets Ancestor Yi. Yi Yun said respectfully as he bowed to the blue-robed scholar in front of him. The words the blue-robed scholar had said were the general principles of the weaponsmithing manual. No one other than the head of the Yi clan could recite the weaponsmithing manual. No wonder he found this person familiar. This was none other than the 18th generation head of the Yi clan, Yi Feng. "Rise." Yi Feng walked in front of Yi Yun and said. Yi Yun stood up. "Is it worth it to waste 10 years of your life for this person?" Yi Feng asked Yi Yun. Yi Yun lowered his head and did not speak. If he didn't use the sky-burning diagram, he would have died at my hands long ago." Wudu sneered from the black palanquin. The head of the Yi clan actually uses a technique from another sect. What a joke. After learning that this person was from the Yi clan, Wudu relaxed. The Yi clan's most powerful weapon was sword chi, but to his iron dust ants, even the most powerful sword chi was just a delicious meal. Yi Yun frowned and prepared to charge at Wudu. A warrior would rather be killed than humiliated. "Huh." Yi Feng reached out and stopped Yi Yun. "Yi ancestor." Yi Yun looked at Yi Feng. Yi Feng shook his head at Yi Yun. Yi Yun gritted his teeth and took a step back. What's wrong? Are you scared? Wu Du laughed. Just as I said, the Yi family are all cowards. Shua. Just as Wu Du finished speaking, Yi Feng turned around and waved his sleeve at Wu Du in the air. Shua. A white arc of light, several dozen feet long, shot out from Nightwind's sleeve, heading straight for Wu Du. The speed was so fast that even Yi Yun's eyes could not keep up with it. What a fast sword energy! Yi Yun sighed in his heart. Seeing that Nightwind had made his move, Wu Du did not dare to delay. He stretched out his hand and struck the incoming arc of light with his palm. Shua! A pillar of black smoke shot out from his palm, heading straight for the white arc of light. Wong! Within the black smoke, countless iron dust ants flapped their wings, buzzing. He wanted to use the iron dust ants to fight against Yi Feng's sword energy. However, he was wrong. Yi Feng was not Yi Yun. His hundreds of years of sword energy was not something a bunch of iron dust ants could block. Clang! The white arc of light cut through the black smoke like tofu, instantly cutting through countless iron dust ants, creating a large number of sparks. Yi Feng's sword energy was so fast and powerful that the iron dust ants did not even have time to chew on it before they were sliced into pieces. The white arc of light, accompanied by the exploding sparks, shot straight up to Wu Du's black palanquin. The light from the arc of light and the sparks illuminated Wu Du's inconceivable face. This person's sword energy was so fast and powerful that it had far exceeded his imagination. In a flash, Wu Du slammed his hands on the armrest and stomped on the bottom of the palanquin. Crash! The moment Yi Feng's sword energy touched the black palanquin, Wu Du's body broke through the roof of the palanquin and flew into the sky. Kacha! The black palanquin was instantly split into two by the sword energy. Seeing his black palanquin split in two, Wu Du, who was floating in the air, felt that it was a close call. If he had not reacted quickly, it would not have been just his palanquin that split in two. What a majestic sword energy! Yi Yun was stunned by the scene in front of him. As the saying went, one should not be afraid of not knowing the goods, but to be afraid of comparing the goods. He had used the same sword energy as this ancestor, but the result was vastly different. His sword energy was like a supreme delicacy to the iron dust ants, but Yi Feng's sword energy was like the king of hell to them. Chapter 388. Yi Yun, there's an expert here today, so I'll let you live for now. Wu Du pointed at Yi Yun on the ground and said fiercely, "But remember, one day, I'll take your head." After Wu Du finished speaking, he waved his sleeves and urged the rolling black cloud under his feet to fly away as fast as lightning. "Thank you for saving me." Yi Yun bowed to Yi Feng again. If it wasn't for Yi Feng, he might not have been able to escape unscathed. However, he was certain that his lifespan would have been reduced by 10 years. "Don't be so polite." Yi Feng waved his hand and said, "Your sword energy is exhausted. Find a place to sit down and rest. I have something to tell you." "Yes." Ian nodded with a pale face. The two of them sat down cross-legged in a relatively clean open space and lit a bonfire. "Do you know why I'm here?" Yi Feng asked Ian. "It is to save this junior's life." Ian replied. "That's one of the reasons," Yi Feng said. "I've shown myself to save you, but I've also come for your grandson." "My grandson?" Ian asked in confusion. "Are you talking about Fan Air?" "That's right." Yi Feng nodded and said, "I'm here for him." "Senior, what do you mean?" Ian asked. "Do you know that he's the reincarnation of Eldritch?" Yi Feng said and looked at Ian. "I know." Ian nodded and replied. "Fan Air has a complicated background. In his previous life, he was the famous Eldritch. To tell you the truth, I've met this Eldritch before. Or rather, I owe him a favor." Yi Feng said and threw a few branches into the bonfire. What? Yi Feng's words shocked Yi Yun. You've met him before? Not bad." Yi Feng nodded and said, "Hundreds of years ago, I became the head of the Yi family. At that time, the Song dynasty was at war with Liao. At that time, More than half of the Song dynasty's military equipment manufacturing was under the responsibility of our Yi family. In order to weaken the Song dynasty's military strength, the Liao kingdom secretly sent more than 30 top experts to infiltrate the Song dynasty, intending to destroy the Yi family and seize the weapon-forging divine chart. At that time, I led dozens of Yi family's experts and were locked in a bitter battle with these assassins for 4 hours. However, due to the great disparity in strength between the two sides, we gradually lost our strength. At the critical moment, Eldritch appeared and killed dozens of Liao Kingdom's experts with just one move. If it weren't for him, I'm afraid our Yi family would have long been gone. There's such a thing, Ian blurted out in surprise. Why wasn't such an important matter recorded in the genealogy? I was the one who ordered that this matter was not to be recorded in the genealogy. Yifeng said. At that time, before Eldritch left, he told me that this matter was not to be told to outsiders. In the future, he would become a member of our Yi family, and this matter could be considered as his repayment for the kindness of raising our Yi family. After hearing this, Yian frowned and fell into deep thought. So at that time, Eldritch already knew that he would be reincarnated into the Yi family. In other words, everything that happened today was within Eldritch's expectations. This time, I came here to ask you to do something, Yifeng said while poking the fire with a branch. He is now a member of our Yi family, and also your grandson. However, don't forget that he is also a great benefactor of our Yi family. Regarding his matters, don't interfere and don't obstruct him. Let him do whatever he wants. Yian frowned and nodded. He knew that Yi Fan's background was complicated, but he did not expect that Eldritch would be a great benefactor of the Yi family. The matter of Eldritch's reincarnation is extremely complicated. I'm afraid that you won't be able to finish it even if I talk to you for 3 days and 3 nights. Yifeng seemed to have seen through Yi Yun's thoughts. When you return to Mongolia, tell Yi Kong not to interfere. In short, let Yi Fan do whatever he wants. These things are predestined in his previous life and cannot be changed by humans. Senior, Yi Yun hesitated for a moment before asking, Are you an immortal? Ha ha! Yifeng laughed loudly. Why are you suddenly asking this? If you are an immortal, can you tell me whether Fan Air's future will be? Yian did not finish his sentence. He had heard Yi Kong tell him about the divination of the diviner. Yi Fan would either be a great hero who saved the people from disaster, or a demon who killed without batting an eyelid. Now that Yi Fan's cultivation was heaven-defying and his evil aura was flickering, Yian did not know what his grandson's future would be. I'm cultivating the path of a sword immortal, not the kind of cultivation that allows one to ascend to heaven. I'm not sure whether I'm an immortal or not, Yifeng said with a smile. As for your grandson's future, let alone me, even a golden immortal from the upper realm would not be able to tell. As I said earlier, the cause and effect of Eldritch matter is extremely complicated. There are changes within changes. No one can tell what will happen in the future. Everything depends on him. Yian nodded solemnly. By the way, don't use the burning heaven diagram on your back so easily. I'm sure Tian Kanzi has already explained the reason to you. 10 years of life is not a joke, Yifeng reminded Yian. To be honest, I won't use this diagram unless it's absolutely necessary, Yian said with a bitter smile. You saw just now? The iron dust ants of Wudu were really powerful. They could break through the sword chi. If I don't use this diagram, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on for long and will be gnawed into a pile of bones. Chapter 389. Don't fight with him. I don't want to fight with him. If he didn't force me, I wouldn't have fought with him, Yian said. Wudu is right. You're the head of the Yi family. If you use unorthodox methods to defeat him, you will lose face, Yifeng said to Yi Yun. Today, I will impart the sword aura tempering technique to you. You have to practice diligently. In time, you will become a sword immortal. Sword immortal. Yi Yun's eyes lit up when he heard this. Could it be that Yi ancestor already had the body of a sword immortal? Although your sword aura can take form, it is scattered and not condensed. It is sharp but not refined. Yifeng said to Yi Yun with a smile. You must know that the Tao of Sword Aura is the same as forging weapons. No matter how good a weapon is, if it is not refined, it will not be able to unleash its true power. Although your sword aura can cut through gold and jade, it can only barely unleash the word sharp. It is still far from being refined. It is like a sword that has not been sharpened. It has the shape of a divine weapon, but it does not have the power of one. I am willing to listen to Yi ancestors' teachings. Yi Feng's words convinced Yi Yun completely. Let me ask you, where is your sword? Yi Feng stared at Yi Yun and asked. Here, Yi Yun said as he picked up the snow thread sword beside him. Yi Feng shook his head with a smile. That is not your sword. Yi Yun frowned and looked puzzled. The snow thread sword was clearly his sword. Why did this ancestor say that it was not? The snow thread sword only has the shape of a sword and no sword spirit. The real sword is here. Yi Feng pointed at his heart. Yi Yun was shocked and seemed to understand something. If there is sword intent in your heart, it will become sword aura. Sword intent is the root of sword aura. Without sword intent, sword aura is like an unsharpened weapon. It only has the shape. As Yi Feng spoke, he picked up a 1-foot-long withered branch and asked Yi Yun, Tell me, what is this? It's a dead branch, Yi Yun replied. Wrong. This is a sword, Yi Feng said as he waved his hand. Shua! The tree branch in Yi Feng's hand suddenly flew towards the forest in the distance like a meteor. Boom! 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 A few loud noises came from the dense forest a few hundred feet away, startling the birds. He then looked at Yi Feng and waved his hand without even raising his head. Shua! The withered branch flew back into Yi Feng's hand. Kacha! Kacha! With a series of crisp sounds, more than a dozen towering trees in the forest in the distance instantly fell to the ground. Each of these giant trees was at least 2 feet thick. Even if there was a storm, they would not be shaken in the slightest. But now, they were actually cut in half by a small withered branch. This scene shocked Ian so much that his jaw nearly dropped to the ground. How could an extremely ordinary withered tree branch in the hands of this ancestor be able to display such great power? If a withered tree branch could be so powerful if a weapon was used, Ian did not dare to continue thinking. Ever since the Yi family became a weaponsmithing aristocratic family, it has always been their lifelong goal to forge a peerless divine weapon. But they do not know that the true divine weapon is not something else, but oneself. Yi Feng threw the withered tree branch back into the fire as he said, It's not your fault. The weaponsmithing manual emphasizes the word weaponsmithing, which is to forge a divine weapon with a physical form. Although Oyezi is good at forging weapons, he has not peaked into the highest realm of sword chi. Compared to the past masters, it is already very rare for you to be able to reach such a realm. Yi ancestor, what is the highest realm of sword chi? Yi asked. There are 3 realms of sword chi cultivation. The first is that everything in the world can be used as a sword. Yi Feng smiled and said, In this realm, gravel, wood shavings, leaves, flowers, and even a drop of water can unleash the power of a peerless divine weapon. Everything in the world can be used as a sword. Yi Yin repeated these words. Before Yi Feng appeared, he did not believe that there was anyone in the world who could reach such a realm. However, after seeing Yi Feng use a withered tree branch to cut down more than 10 towering trees, he no longer doubted the authenticity of this realm. Although this realm seems powerful, it is still a physical form after all. It can only be considered a beginner, Yi Feng said to Yi Yun with a smile. Beginner? Yi Yun was stunned when he heard this. He was in disbelief. This realm was only a beginner. The second realm is to use your intent as a guide and your chi as a sword, Yi Feng said as he picked up a fist-sized green stone beside him and gently tossed it into the air. Whoosh! The stone flew straight into the clouds. Ian raised his head and looked up. He didn't know what realm Yi Feng was talking about. Whoosh! Just as Yi Yun was puzzled, more than 10 green lights descended from the clouds and headed straight for the 2 of them. They were as fast as lightning. Whoosh! Just as the green lights were about to land, Yifeng extended his hand and opened his palm. The green lights flew into his hand and hovered above his palm. "Look, what is this?" Yifeng showed his palm to Yi. The confused Yi took a closer look and was instantly shocked by the scene in front of him. It was impossible. In Yifeng's palm, there were 13 small, exquisite stone swords. These 13 stone swords were formed from the green stones. Yi-Yun's eyes widened. He could not believe what he was seeing. Chapter 390. Bang! Just as Yi-Yun was in shock, Yifeng slightly bent his 5 fingers, and the exquisite stone swords floating above his palm instantly turned into dust, like smoke and mist. This realm has already transcended the physical form of the sword. It has already reached the realm of sword energy transformation. It can be transformed into any form it will, Yifeng said as he bent his fingers again. Whoosh! The smoke-like stone powder floating in his palm instantly condensed and transformed into a 5-inch long stone sword. Whoosh! Yifeng waved his hand, and the stone sword in his hand instantly disappeared with a flash of green light. Boom! Dozens of feet away, a 5-inch tall boulder instantly exploded. Whoosh! Rubble rained down from the sky. Whoosh! The moment the rubble rained down, Yifeng smiled and waved his sleeve. Whoosh! All the rubble instantly gathered together and turned into a huge green boulder. Boom! The huge boulder landed beside Yifeng. Yi-Yun stared at the huge boulder in front of him in a daze. He was so shocked that he could not say a word. Whoosh! The 5-inch long stone sword flew back into Yifeng's hand. After cultivating sword energy to this realm, it can be said that you have already taken half a step into the path of a sword immortal. You can fly with sword energy and travel with sword energy. You can travel freely between heaven and earth. As Yifeng spoke, he turned the stone sword into stone again and threw it to the ground. Yi-Yun was silent. Such an unbelievable realm was only half a step into the path of a sword immortal. Then, the realm of a true sword immortal was unimaginable. Yi Ancestor, what is the highest realm of sword energy? Yi-Yun asked. He really wanted to know the answer to this question. Myriad swords return to origin, no sword under the heavens. Yifeng said calmly as he added firewood to the fire. Myriad swords return to origin, no sword under the heavens. Yi-Yun carefully savored these words. This is the third realm I wanted to talk about. It is also the highest realm of sword immortals. Yifeng clapped his hands and looked up at Yi-Yun. This realm completely transcends the concept of sword. It has reached the realm of swordless sword. After reaching this realm, one could be called a sword immortal. Swordless sword. It was indeed a profound concept. Yi-Yun sighed in his heart. Yifeng's words opened his eyes. As far as he was concerned, the first level, everything in the world can be used as a sword, was already unreachable, let alone the third level. All swords return to their origin, no swords in the world. Right now, your sword chi is chaotic and impure. You have no sword intent in your heart, and you are clinging to the weapon in your hand. Naturally, your sword chi cultivation will stagnate, Yifeng said. This sword is like a pen in a scholar's hand. Have you ever seen a scholar cling to a pen in his hand? His words awakened the dreamer. Yifeng's words made Yi-Yun feel as if he was suddenly enlightened. Just as Night Wind had said, he was too obsessed with the tangible sword. Ancestor Night, please teach me the way of sword energy, Yi-Yun said, kneeling before Night Wind. Looking at Yi-Yun kneeling in front of him, Night Wind smiled. All right, since you and I are both members of the Yi family, and also the head of the Yi family, I will teach you a few sword chi chants and a way to refine your sword chi. In the future, if you meet Wu Du again, you will not have to be controlled by him and embarrass the Yi family. Night Wind smiled as he helped Yin up, outside the Miao stockade village in the mountains. Whoosh! A black gas whizzed through the air and landed on the mountain peak. Whoosh! The black gas dissipated as soon as it landed. A pale Wu Du clutched his chest as he slowly appeared from the black gas. He walked straight to a cliff and waved his sleeves at the smooth stone wall. Rumble! The stone wall split into two, revealing a hole about 3 feet wide. Wudu walked straight into the hole. Rumble! The stone wall closed. After passing through the dark corridor, Wudu arrived at a spacious green stone room. There was a cloud bed in the stone room and nothing else. On the cloud bed, an old man dressed in black meow clothing sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 7 green lightning bolts snaked up from the stone floor and entered the old man's eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Around the cloud bed, dozens of thick green vines stretched out. The vines wrapped around the old man's chest and flashed with green light. Moss. Master. Wudu clutched his chest and fell to his knees in front of the old man. How did you get hurt like this? The old man retracted the lightning and continued to meditate. Where's your black sedan? I lost. Wudu lowered his head. The black sedan was cut in half. Your cultivation is far above Yun's. How could you not be his match? The old man asked. It was not him. It was someone else. Wudu lowered his head and replied. Someone else? Who? The old man continued to ask. I think it was an ancestor of the Yi family. Wudu raised his head and replied. This person's sword chi cultivation was extremely high. In one move, he destroyed my black sedan and the iron ants. An ancestor of the Yi family? In one move? The old man in black meow clothing suddenly opened his eyes when he heard Wudu's words. His eyes glowed with green light and looked extremely terrifying. What did he look like? Did he carry a weapon? The old man asked. He was dressed like a Confucian scholar. I did not see him carry a weapon. Wudu said. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.